to go. I'm serious. I'm gonna be your stowaway. I'll be the hitchhiker.
The chickens are just like
They are. Basically, just get out there, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
they're laying 4 to 5 a day. Like one that is an older one that probably shouldn't be laying is now laying.
peer pressure.
Yeah, probably. Like, oh look, they're all doing it.
Chicken peer pressure. Oh, I'm so excited.
I had to convince them that
Grocery store is
oh, totally.
just terrible. Love eggs. I got all these little eggs.
I don't think backyard eggs have cholesterol.
It would take me 3 years to go to that.
Are you serious? I'm so poor I can't even afford a razor. That's why I'm growing this out.
But you got your Grand Canyon trip, right?
Yeah.
I'm getting ready for windburn, but
Planted grass and all that straw.
growing a beard is good.
Did you see
Finally
what
catching up
happened?
to beard. Which
So I remember
short.
on their
From
side,
his
they
outgrowth
put down
beard.
all that straw.
It does have your sequence in it.
But that's color.
It's all
Why is it color?
I mean, it's awesome. There's like almost no
Yeah, me too.
I hate it.
Totally.
I got this one right here. You see it?
It's supposed to map. That's just all supposed to be.
No, it's all in our yard. I mean, it's a mess.
You mean hanging
It's
out with all this
Dude, let me,
little white hair
I'll send an
prints?
email right
No,
now.
there's just one.
Oh, yeah, the rest of them are blonde.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and the fact that there's grass in it is.
See,
No, it's, I mean, I was walking down the street seeing how far it went, and it came all the way, it's definitely all the way down here too.
How about that street sweeper? 3 street sweepers in town?
I was
And they're
sick,
trailing
so I
more
was
than what they're
just
picking
looking
up. How about that? That is quite interesting. 3 street sweepers. Yesterday they had 2
Well, I
following
think
each other,
it was
and they were leaving more behind than they were picking up. And then we had 3 today going up and down the
I
park.
feel like,
And they were making more of a mess than what they were picking up. And I was like, these
And I
guys.
don't have anything on the website for you.
I saw one on Louisville
Right
today
now.
too, though,
But,
it's the same thing.
our
It was
kids
leaving like a
do,
huge pile out.
IT stuff. We're gonna
And
go
that's when you gotta stop.
and
That's
see
when
where
full.
it
That's when you gotta
is.
stop.
And
When everything
all
goes, it goes up and you turn back, and then back up again. Just don't drag it through like 7 blocks.
So I.
No, this is all mine growing through.
This is actually not even that bad.
I'm asking in the office, is anybody else know anybody? And nobody said anything, so,
no, nobody said I know, I have my uncle about it.
yeah, no, nobody has said anything, so, once I hear about
Yeah,
it.
that's
it's
like
like,
It almost gets down.
Yeah, it's always good.
I watched it, yeah.
So how do the kids grab the bite?
I was home long enough literally to pour the
I
coffee.
didn't think they probably.
Put a lid and water it.
Everybody would be so party, not have to be all the rest. Yeah,
Well, then if you win, I mean, you have all the.
And if you didn't turn around, you get-
which was bad enough.
I never,
Well, when you go down.
But
I did go down.
except for trustee Anthony's freshman orientation for his
Or
child.
do something.
I mean, it's really nice.
Yes, it is, it's nice. You know,
I email, of course, I mean,
stadium anyway.
Lindsay asked if we were having a meeting tonight on Monday, and I said, yeah.
Okay. I know, that's what I was thinking. Like, you don't have almost-
Where's Ron?
only 7.
No, think what it'd be like if you were the youth advisory council, you had everybody sitting here.
They like that.
They gotta have
Historic
bleachers.
commission,
So, why can't we spend a few $100s and get a microphone that works at a community theater? Because I've looked online and they exist,
I would
and
just say
they're
at
under
this
$500.
point, I would stop. I mean, I don't.
This is not the way to do community business. We're not a board. We want to talk and look at people. And I mean,
I like looking at the profiles.
I'm gonna stare into your eyes when you're telling me how you feel.
I feel like everybody's so far away from each other.
It just doesn't, I mean, and imagine if you're.
Our audience is.
All right, well, 7:05, let's call to order this meeting, PROSTAC.
February 17th, 2016. Lindsay Boyle and Ron Summer are not present. Hopefully they'll be here. And Trustee Hanson, our liaisons, will not be present. All right, so, I mean, do we want to talk about this real quick? So, the staff has asked us to sit up here. I mean, we can make a motion so that the board hears it, and that says that we don't want to, that we do or do not want to sit up here.
I make a motion that we don't have to sit up here.
Hold
I
on,
second it.
hold on. All right,
Sandy, maybe.
and you've got it seconded?
All right, so
You guys go for it.
all in favor of asking the board to allow us to sit at a table rather than the dais?
Maybe we could find a way to get a microphone.
Opposed?
So we got.
Was there one
1, 2,
opposed?
3.
Or do you
I
not
abstain.
care?
I don't care.
Not
Yeah,
care.
put them back up really quickly so I can get the count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. 7.
All right, so unanimous. Okay.
How are you over there?
I am here.
What's up, Lindsay?
I had to wait for my babysitter to show up.
Yeah.
We can squeeze another chair in up there.
Are you special up there or not?
You can stand here.
Do you care?
I don't care.
I'll
Heck
stare
no.
at everyone.
Heck no.
Hey, now we
This is the best view for the,
This is the best.
Trajectory.
This is the best view for the.
All right. So first item on the agenda, the Coyote Ridge Mountain Bike Trail. We should get something moving on this soon. So just discuss if, you know, what dates might work for the committee to have a public meeting regarding the trail, and then the goals that we might want to have for such a meeting. So, I mean, we can look at March or April. I don't know if anyone has any opposition to doing it within the next 2 months.
I think March or April sounds great.
All right, so let's look at the calendar real quick. Our regular meeting is March 16th. And then it's spring break for Boulder Valley School District the following week. Our regular April meeting is April 20th. So what we've done in the past is we could either have a standalone meeting, or we could have a meeting prior to our regular meeting. So we could have it at, say, 6 o'clock, run it for like an hour, hour and a half, and then as soon as the public meeting adjourns, we would have our regularly scheduled PROSTAC meeting. So I don't know if that works better for people, because you already kind of have that date checked off, or we want to just look at a standalone date.
I think that works great.
Do it in one of the
Yeah,
Wednesdays.
it's already on the calendar and it's
I
just.
prefer to do it all in one and get it over with.
Okay. So, like I said, March 16th would be the March meeting, or we could wait till April and do it on April 20th. So any thoughts there?
How much time do we usually give notice?
Do you think that's enough? I mean, we would have, if we did it in March, Patrick, enough notice to get it out to the town?
Yeah, because I think if we come to agreement, we could probably advertise it by Friday.
Okay.
Put it in the newsletter and do a company blasts and really start pushing it now sooner rather than later.
Additionally, it's well before the start of real mountain bike season. Not that I didn't ride my bike today, but it gives us an opportunity to get like some momentum behind it before real mountain bike season starts.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be good for us to get a start on this, before the real warm weather, so that if we were to actually try to able to do something this year, we have as
Right.
much time as possible to do it.
Right now, the trail use is
You never
limited,
know when it's gonna snow next.
meaning that not very many people are using it. You know, like I said, it's my backyard, so I look out the window all the time, and compared to what its normal usage is, right now for the last month, it's been very, very low. So it's a good time to catch the people before they start using it again.
Yeah. All right, so I guess let's, is everyone okay with doing it then, 6 o'clock on Wednesday, March 16th? And then we'll have that lead into our regular meeting. You know, if you can't be here at 6, you know, then that's okay, but if you can, you know, that would be helpful if everyone's here. So some of the goals for that meeting. You know, we talked about previously, a lot of this initially is just going to be an education to some extent as to what the original purpose of this trail was, what is actually a trail and what are social trails, as well as some of the issues we have with, you know, off-leash dogs and so forth. So I think that, you know, that should be part of the meeting, is just kind of whoever's there, and maybe even we can include in the e-blast some of that information so that that goes out to more than just the people that are in attendance. But aside from that, you know, we obviously want to learn something from the meeting as well. So as far as, you know, do we want to just address it from, do people, as basic as, do people want this to be a mountain bike trail? Or do we want to, you know, dig a little deeper into feedback from the community?
So I believe that first and foremost, it's supposed to be for education, just to really get folks to understand what is trail, what isn't trail, what's allowed back there, what's not allowed back there. Because that's really most of the complaints that I hear is people just don't really know what. Everybody assumes that that's the only open space, or that's the only off-leash area for dogs, and the other folks tell them, and so, you know, just by propagating the information, everybody believes it. So I think that's first and foremost. Two, I would be in favor of putting out for public consent, you know, what would they like to see this trail used for, either sole mountain biking, shared use, what is the public opinion on how they would like to see this trail, with the understanding that we can't change the fact that it's not off-leash. Because that's going to be a bunch of the comments we're going to get back and say, well, I'd like to see it as an off-leash dog area. Well, that's not on the table. What else?
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's a town ordinance.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
that's part of the education.
yeah, I mean, that's not really, that would get shot down quickly if we brought it up.
I'd also somehow be in favor of, in addition to that, you know, if we had some kind of, to reach out to more public, you know, handing pamphlets out or something, or just standing by those trails where they actually intersect with the sidewalk and just, you know, talking to folks, educating them, the ones who didn't come, because you know, I think that's how we're going to reach a lot of the folks if we really wanted to do the education. You know, for me, it's really easy. I can just go out my backyard sometime and stand out there for a few hours and have my little,
You should get a bullhorn for
Yeah.
a day.
my little pin on and say, would you like some chocolate and learn about the trail?
Is there any, other than off-leash dogs, is there any complaints or conflicts that come up regularly?
Not that we have noted.
Do people know where the defined trails actually are, or?
That
Because there are a
is,
ton of
They make
social
their own,
trails out
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of what we need to do is the education is what is actually a trail and what are the social trails. And from that, we might be able to learn a little bit, well, if we were to expand the actual trails, you know, what social trails do people really like, or what ones would they like to see added on to the existing network?
It'd be interesting if we could include a map of the actual trail area.
Yeah,
Of
I
some
mean,
sort.
definitely. I mean, that's something we'll have to have.
Could that go in the e-blast too?
Well, I think it's almost a little bit more than just the Coyote Ridge, though. It's almost like the Coyote Ridge and that whole area back there. What's level 3, what's social, what's,
Yeah.
what's community? Because I think that's one of the biggest misunderstandings about that trail back there is just what is kind of superior maintained trail and what's it used for and how can it be used? And honestly, I think it's more of not only is it used for the right purpose, but what are other additional things that can enhance that trail? Because that's really what we're talking about is that trail is, it's really unsure what's kind of community trail versus, what we could use it for and enhance that trail and make it a little bit better for people and that area in there. So I think that's more of the discussion. Because there's a lot of trails that go up and down the ridges out there. I mean, I've run it a lot and it's, they're not really, they're pretty direct vertical down and back up type things.
Is there trash cans out there?
No.
There is a couple of benches out there. I think they have like maybe memorial sayings or something, some kind of commemorative benches, 1 or 2 out there, but that's about it.
There's also what looks like, I don't know if they're still working, like, in use anymore, but there were like sort of placards that explained the topography of the land, that sort of thing.
Kind of by those benches, exactly.
Yeah.
It says, this is what you're looking at, this is like, there's a historical thing, 'cause it says, this is what it used to look like, and this is what it looks like today.
Right, and there's some that don't even have anything on them anymore that I've run past before.
Yeah.
There used to be a sign at the top of the loop,
Uh-huh,
and that's not there anymore, right?
right.
I think all the district signs, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2, have come down.
Yeah.
The infrastructure seems to still be there in some cases,
Mhm.
there's just nothing
The,
on.
yeah, the posts are there, I
So
think.
do we have a town map that shows the trails that are there and what's level 3 versus Superior?
Yeah.
And just kind of that boundary? Because I think that really would enlighten a lot of people, and I think that'd be
Well, yeah, and
a good
I think
education piece.
if we can get a good image, I mean, we'll have to, between now and then, we'll have to look this up. If we can get a good Google Earth image to show the social trails that exist, and then maybe highlight the, the one piece that's the actual trail, so then people can really see, what exists out there, but what is not actually town.
Seems like there's also a risk that, I know, when was it, 2 years ago maybe, that level 3 went out there and through those, they
2 years ago.
secured their fences.
Yeah.
If we do an effort to enhance the trails, it's gonna feed into their property. I mean, there's a chance that they could close off the access.
And they closed off the access last time because folks were dumping up there. And they thought it was coming from the housing up, but it was really folks coming from 128,
Yep.
dropping it off. And they realized
Oh, I
that,
see.
they were cutting out the wrong people.
Okay,
So that's why they took them down.
okay.
But yeah, I ran into that when I was like,
Not
literally.
fun.
But the point being,
Okay.
though, is that, there's a lot of community trail out there in the back, and if there's a way to enhance the Coyote Ridge and make it more noticeable as a trail that's kind of your key trail that you want to be on, and I don't know, we talked about trash cans and things like that. If there's a point of entry that could have like a trash, type of scenario, those type of enhancements that can just kind of key where you should be and where you
But
shouldn't.
the interesting thing is, I'm out there a lot, and I don't really see any trash out there. I mean, the only trash you ever see is the dog feces.
Yeah, well,
They're putting them in green bags, but then they're leaving them.
and there's a trash can right at the top when you come up before you tie into that trail.
I feel like this map is really gonna do what we want. It's gotta be more detailed than this, because that just shows I'm not sure it's gonna really, how most people are gonna look at it and go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Because there's so many social trails out there that if we don't do something that shows the social trails, this won't really do it for us.
So we have this laid over a Google Maps.
You did, okay,
That'd be good.
okay.
So I think we were talking about goals. Something to consider for us is during warmer months, when there's not any snow and it's not as muddy, a lot of the social trails, at least the lower social trails that are towards the sidewalk, are kids walking to and from school.
Mhm.
And they're just cutting the sidewalk that's gonna be hard to curb. I mean, parents are gonna say, hey, don't do it, but kids are gonna do what kids are gonna do for the most part, right? If we're trying to get rid of social trails, I'm just pointing that out. But the other thing that we need to really educate folks too is a lot of the social trails go to the little reservoir back there. There's one or two. And the bad part about that reservoir is it'll ice up a little bit and you'll see kids playing on it all the time. The social trail takes them right to the reservoir. And folks like the social trail there because then they can go up to it and see it. But then the kids will take that same trail and walk around the icy reservoir, and what happened with Parker a month or so ago scares the Jesus out of me every time I see that.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of this could be, some of those trails, social trails that the kids are using, maybe we bring those into the fold and make them an actual, enhanced trail. Though that does go down that really steep hill on the west side.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the town would encourage that at
So
all.
I have a question though. With the Coyote Ridge, what's actually done to maintain the trail at this point in time? I mean, what's the difference between that trail and any of the other community trails out there? Because I know that the paved ones are plowed, when they get snow on them, all that kind of stuff. But these other trails, what's the difference?
So,
That's the problem right now. There
I
isn't really.
I mean, experience right now. These trails were made and they were set, and now they're just there, and they maintain themselves because people use them.
Well, and I'm asking that too because in the summer months, like especially at the beginning of the season, when it's spring, and that's when all the plants are overgrowing the trails.
Yep.
And when you get out there, I mean, if you pick your trail and you're kind of, you're making your own path. Where if there's a maintenance of this trail that actually mows like just a swath.
That's actually a really good point because this past summer there's been several close encounters with rattlesnakes on that trail, just because the grass goes right up to the edge.
Yeah.
And so it's not as easy to see them.
To be fair though, if we want it to be a mountain bike trail, it should be true single track, so mowing on the sides of it.
Well, that goes into the goal, right?
Right.
Well, and that's why I'm asking, what's the difference? How do you distinguish this as a superior trail versus a community trail?
I don't know, maybe there are some signage things we could do, maybe we could post some, like trail maps at the beginning so people sort of have a good idea of where they're going. I mean, I think there's a few different things that we can do. The way that the Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance manages the trails over Calgary Draw, Meadowlark, all that, they put, big, huge rocks and logs to prevent you from going down the social trails to try and divert you from that.
Right.
It helps prevent people from riding it wide too, which I don't think we have a problem with.
So one thing I'd like to kind of get an opinion of the group is, what is the group's kind of, what do we think, regardless of the public, which we will ask, but what do we kind of, in our hearts, think this trail should be used for? And the reason why I ask is because other than a few bikers, I see mostly just walking on the dogs on there and their families. I believe that once we open this to the public, if we don't kind of already, have some ideas in mind, that overwhelmingly we're going to get that, hey, let's just make it an area for families and dogs, right? So if we really want it to be a back to its original roots of mountain bike trails, then, I don't think we'll get that opinion from the public, I guess is what I'm concerned with, and if that's truly what we want.
I think it should remain a multi-use trail. I mean, it should be mountain biking and running, and if people want to walk their dogs out there on leash, that's fine. Like, that's the sort of stigma within Boulder County. There are very few trails that mountain bikers are allowed on, so to eliminate mountain biker use of these trails, I think would be short-sighted on our part.
Yeah, I would say make it a multi-use trail that you follow the same rules that you do if you're riding on others, where you have to yield. I don't know about horses on it. I've never seen a horse out there. It's not an there's too many good places to take a horse.
There's not a trailhead to put it out there.
Yeah, so I would say maybe that's part of the deal, that there's a little bit of signage about understanding the yield rules.
Yeah, they have that cute little triangle where the horse is on the top and the bikers and the runners.
And then a multi-use trail. I mean, it's really fun to ride your bike on it.
Yeah.
But it is getting like, at the end of the summer, it was the earth was like really cracked and starting to kind of open. It was a little dangerous.
But I also think that's because not many cyclists use it. And
Yeah.
I think that is a benefit of having mountain bikers out there, is that they kind of wear down and wear in a trail.
And then there's probably areas that we do need to, it could use intervention even from people walking, because
Yep.
even just that, like whoever commented on the,
Yeah,
the
it's pretty
trails
straight.
they don't have any curves and they're straight up and.
And maybe
Some
that's a
of
way
those
we
just-
could resolve some of the
those are
social trails, is to cut in a trail that's sustainable instead of the social trail. You know, with some switchbacks or whatever down to the pond that's there.
Mhm. I guess-
Yeah, following on that, I would be curious to know what people want for a goal up there, because, I mean, if we don't have a goal, having a meeting with people here isn't gonna help. So what's the vision of it for the people who are involved in this? And I'm not as involved because I live on the other side of town, so, following on your lead, what's the thought process here? Do we want this to be a maintained, is this something we put on our, let's make this more than just a casual trail, let's make it a real, let's spend the money, let's put money aside for it, see if we can get something done there. Is that where the thinking is here, or are we more, let's just keep it casual and?
Yeah.
To be completely transparent, I love to ride my bike, and I think that that expands my ability to ride my bike in Superior. And if we made it more of a Boulder County open space type trail where there were clear markings about where you should ride and, you know, directional arrows and that sort of thing, it was more broadly publicized that that you were allowed to ride your bike or to run over there, I think more people in town would use it, and it would sort of bolster its case to be continued to be maintained. Because right now it's in big time disrepair.
What's the length of that trail, you know? Approximately?
I've run it.
The small one or the big one?
It's, so, it was on our 2016 budget recommendation to the board for trails, and it is on OSAC's radar. They seem to be favoring, you know, some improvement to it. So I think that there's definitely some momentum that we could be putting some money towards this to enhance it, you know, at least do maintenance to get it in line with what's more acceptable for a shared use trail in Boulder County. And
That one's
if
too
that's
short, yeah.
done,
It's less than-
then I certainly think we could publicize it more as a place where mountain bikers can use it.
That's like a
And hopefully that would encourage that type of use.
Yeah, so a long-term goal is we'd like to see this to be a well-organized, some kind of control on it, some kind of mechanism to say, okay, dog's on a leash, whatever you want to say, as well as the fact that we want mountain bikers to know it's here. So, I mean, I think that's my question. Let's figure out a goal here.
Yeah.
Let's not say, hey, let's get people in here and talk about it. Let's,
Well,
I think that's our objective.
right.
my other question would be is, I mean, looking at the Google Earth map and seeing the trails out there, you know, my question would be is back to almost level 3, and, you know, we really want to make this a mountain bike trail, but if we don't distinguish it any different than the other trails out there, we're basically opening it up and inviting people to be out on the level 3 property.
Right.
And asking them to go on all those other trails, because if you look at the very end of that trail at the bottom on the far south end, it basically continues up the hill, and you don't notice that there's a difference in the trail at all. It looks
No.
just as cut in going south as it is in that red circle.
And maybe that's somewhere where we can spend some money, is on
And,
signage.
and that's where, you know, it's
Rob,
almost,
There's a light switch behind you.
and that's where it's almost to me that, you know, this is like a 2-part discussion with, you know, we asked to put in the bike park, you know, at one point, and now is this a secondary piece to that builds on the outdoor, more of an outdoor trail that's a little bit more than the little bike park that we put in by the Frisbee park, Frisbee golf.
Well, I
You
think
know what I
they have
mean? I
two
mean,
different purposes, though.
Oh, I totally agree, but it's building on that and getting a little bit more, that there's a couple different locations within town that you can go and, you
Right.
know, use some mountain biking. But you can see on those trails that one going south is just as cut in as all the other ones. And that trail off to the loop off to the side is almost gone now.
Is
To the
there
west.
any way to have a separate walking place and biking place. I mean, I love single track biking, but I find like when you're trying to do that and you run across the dogs and the people, especially on a single track, it's really frustrating, or vice versa if I'm running so I just don't know if that area is big enough for that. I've only been out there a few times, but it just seems like if I lived there and I was a dog walker, I'd want my space, and if I was there and a biker, I'd want my space.
So, but the really cool part about it, Daryl, is the crushed gravel path that's right behind the houses too, is really conducive to walking dogs also. So, I could think if you had an issue with potentially a mountain, plus the visibility is great, so it's not like Marshall Mesa where sometimes you come around the corner and there's people right there.
Yeah.
The visibility is really good on that particular stretch of trail. So you would be able to see the bikers or hikers or dog walkers coming long before they arrived at your location. So there aren't those instances like on Coal Seam over here where you come around a corner and there's a person. So.
And then, I mean, there's also, when we're talking about shared use, I mean, there's having a trail that's actually for shared use all the time, or there's, you know, the city or the county does it on some trails where, you know, mountain bikes are allowed Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and walkers are allowed the other days. I mean, you could actually try to separate.
I think it's
Who's gonna police
who's
that?
gonna enforce that?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
gonna
not,
enforce
it's
it.
not, and it's something that you just need to have signage for, and it's basically
I don't think
self-enforced.
people really pay attention to signage anyways around here.
I don't know, Batasso is like that, and people do pay attention to it, like.
Yeah.
It's
There's bikers on
directional
certain
sometimes,
days
and
and-
it's bikes on certain days, and hikers and runners on certain days.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of whether it's a well-known, you know, established rule or
I
not.
think if you put the signs up at the entry and said, you know, direction this way, bikes this direction, people would start following it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's more known that it's there and that's the direction. And then, you know, a lot of times I've seen that the bikers go one way, and a lot of times if the bikers are headed one way, the walkers will go the other.
Yep.
So that way you can see them coming
can
and
see
they're
them
not coming up
coming.
behind you and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, everybody's can
Yeah.
see each other.
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, I think we have enough
Patrick, can you scroll a little this way?
to put together
There's the
some
holding button right there.
discussion
That's a holding
points.
pond. That's our,
It's the bladder.
it's a bladder for our reuse water, correct? And you said that kids are going up there when it's iced over?
No,
Maybe.
over.
Not
What are we
that,
talking?
it's
Exactly.
over to
Down
the,
below.
This one didn't.
That
To
one,
the
no.
north, yeah.
That one to the.
that
one.
pond.
Right there.
Yeah.
That's a little pond.
There's social trails all around that whole.
Yep.
And I mean, there is a sign on it that says,
says
don't go on the ice, but I mean, clearly it's not
People don't read.
respected.
Yeah, it's not respected, I understand that.
But that's it right there.
Is that
You can see right there, it
retaining
goes
from
right down.
the draws, or is this storm sewer water? What is this?
It's just natural runoff.
Natural runoff?
Sometimes it's dry, sometimes. Last spring, it flooded over.
It really picked up last spring with all the
It
rain.
was, it
Absolutely.
was
What's-
dry about 2 years before the flood, and then when the flood came, it
What's the
filled right back
deepest
up.
part of that? We know? Does anybody know what's the deepest part of that?
I've heard that it's like
Is that,
6 feet.
and if you go farther to the north, is that the one that they just got done cleaning?
Yeah.
The Erman's drainage did?
Yeah.
Gotcha,
That one, the one across.
This
from-
one, and I'll clean this one this year.
gotcha.
All right. Well, yeah, I think we have enough to move forward with some objectives for the meeting next month. You know, we'll put something together so that we're prepared.
Can we put any kind of signs up there near the trails too? You know, even if it was just on that coroplast board that just said, you know, come talk about Coyote Ridge or something, at least for the people who,
Did you
it
know
might be
we-
another way to reach people.
Yeah, did you know we have a mountain bike trail up here?
Yeah.
Well, there's a signage board or a trash can right there on that corner, just
By the
south
pool?
of that.
Well,
Over
and we had played like when we were doing the
Where they
school
come
parcel
from.
park and stuff, we had played with some info
Where's
boxes.
the trash can?
If those
Yeah.
still
Please
exist.
zoom in, please, Patrick.
Can you point at it right at the point where those two trails come
Yeah, if
together,
we put
right
those
above?
info boxes out with just some flyers on
If-
come.
I'll have to see who has
There's
them,
a
but if
pavilion right
staff
there.
has them, we can put something out
Yeah, I
there.
think that would be a good
Pirates
idea.
Park or whatever they call it, yeah.
Right there.
Back out. Go back up over here.
It's right there.
Okay.
It's by the-
There's one at Pirate
And
Park.
there's one over by the
And then,
pool.
yeah.
too.
There's one by the pool
Pirate
too.
Park and at the pool.
Gotcha.
There's the pavilion by the pool.
Gotcha.
Right there.
And there's signage right there too, still.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do
it's
you-
pretty faded, but there is a sign.
Do you guys think that we need more trash cans out there on the social trails or no? Or off to the side of the social trail for dog feces?
The problem is if you put them out where the social trails are, I mean, is anyone gonna go pick it, you
Instead
know,
of,
Well,
change
instead of
them?
leaving it on the grass,
Yeah, I mean,
I'd rather
we'll
encourage
pay
people to
bargains
pick it up
to
and
go
curb
change
their
it.
dog.
So how are they gonna get
Even
up
if
there
it's
to-
off the paved path?
How do they get up there to actually change it?
They just walk up there and get them.
So the thing about it, it's a thought process that, what is it gonna cost to put a few trash cans in to get people to curb their dog, put it in the trash can versus laying it on a trail and having Lindsay run it over with her bicycle?
I will make a mess.
Yes, exactly. So do we encourage that or do we just let them just throw it out in the grass? You know, you gotta think about that.
There's no other
Even
points
if there's
other
a
than
trash
the
can 100 yards away from someone, they tend to leave it in the grass. I've been-
But I think the key is the entry points are on the south there, and there is a trash can near the entry points. So as long as people actually carry it and bring it back, because it is a loop,
That's right.
so as long as we can educate that there's a trash can here and this is a loop up there.
And
You know.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to put a few trash cans in going farther to the south.
Is there trash cans up there behind your house on the crushed?
So
crushed
my house is right there where those two sidewalks on the east come together.
Okay.
There is a trash can right there.
Yeah. And I think there's one
There's
down
one
by
next to
the little creek crossing where the little bridge is at the low point. I think there's a
I
trash
mean, that's
can
a
down
question we
there.
can just ask
There's a-
at the
I think
community.
so too.
Yeah.
'cause
There's a
There's a
bench.
there's a bench there.
I'm pretty sure.
So are we gonna have a list of questions then? That kind
Yeah.
of consolidate this discussion here? and-
Well, we want to facilitate a discussion with the public, right? So we should have some facilitated style questions, like open-ended to get comment instead of, you know. what do you guys
Exactly.
want?
Yeah, I
Well,
think,
yeah.
well,
We want to be able to guide and direct the, down the conversation.
yeah, I mean, we'll need to put together some type of little initial presentation for the education part, as well as, I took some notes, as well as some
Okay.
questions that we want to ask, to, what we hope to get from this meeting, and some discussion points. So,
Do we see any street parking up there for this little trail?
No.
No.
Does it,
Mostly,
does it go to the pool?
You
You want
can
people
park
park
at
in
the
the
pool.
pool, at the pool parking lot, or?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know where
I
I
mean,
park
you-
when I go up there, and it's just right along the road, so I just wondered if there's a.
Yeah, I haven't received any complaints.
I haven't, so
No.
we're right by where you would come in, over by that little reservoir, and no, there is no, as far as I can say, there is no street parking that, that's discernible. I don't know about the pool, but the pool is already most of the time this thing would be used during the summer, the pool is already in use and it's got its own full parking.
So
The
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 entrance
key
is
to the
further-
pool is that's a big
entrance is further
ravine
than
just
south
to the
is where
east there.
People would be going in.
And that's
also-
where
that's right.
people go right down in there
Yeah,
and come straight back up.
I see
That's
more
pretty
bikers
steep
actually
stuff.
coming up from Rock Creek and just riding up the sidewalk and then hitting it from there. So I don't know if they're riding over to Rock Creek or I doubt they're parking on Rock Creek, but I usually see them riding up that sidewalk.
You can
Just
also
something to think
like,
about when you start talking about making this a more public.
it could also be,
known event.
sorry, Ron, I'll let you, I'm sorry.
that's fine.
Okay. But you can pick it up too if you come from McCaslin and you ride parallel to McCaslin, come up there like you're going up the wall, and you can pick it up off that trail and ride the far west side.
If you're on the crushed or if you're on the L3.
Well, I think
You're on
that's,
level 3.
I think
Right.
Superior, I
Because-
On the
think
back.
like halfway up, it's a grade on there. I mean, it's a pretty technical climb on your bike going up, going from north to south.
Well, and then at that point, just above the cursor, that's where it goes into level 3 community trail.
Yeah, it's the best part up there.
Oh, I know. That's got some switchbacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the property line right there?
That's the difference between the maintained trail and the community trail. Because the maintained goes around the back of the house with crusher fines.
Mhm.
So there could be a potential tie-in to the whole, the Dirty Bismarck Loop, and, I mean,
That would
a
be
little
super
bit.
sweet.
That would be awesome.
Then you could actually park at the
Then you can park
roundabout,
at the, yeah,
ride up and do that little cruiser and.
at the Colton Trailhead.
These are great tie-ins to our next discussion.
It's perfect.
All right.
We own that whole
So let's,
outlined in black, correct?
This,
Yep.
it's jointly with Boulder County,
And they don't want any trails there.
and they don't want anything on it, correct?
They're no fun.
All right, let's move on to the item number 4. So we had our list of trail recommendations for the, from the budget recommendations last year. This is separate from the 5-year trails plan. And we had, well, I'll just read down the list. We had Coyote Ridge trail maintenance and improvements. So we just talked about that. Fire Station Park, west toward and along McCaslin, add a connection from Fire Station Park to South Indiana. So that was going to be a piece that's actually would now tie into what Calamonte is supposed to put in. Install a combination hard-soft trail north of Shamrock Drive, east of 88th, with wildlife viewing area for Hodgkin Harris. We basically nixed that at this point. So did OSAC. Richmond access connection from sidewalk along Colton to hard surface trail near Richmond property. That one was just going to be the short little connection for what's. I mean, that's basically a social trail right now that we were just going to pave.
Almost
right?
like a service road.
Yeah. Install soft trail parallel to McCaslin from water treatment plant entrance to High Plains Drive. So that was going to take the piece from where on the west side of McCaslin where the trail now goes from like the Key Bank down to the water treatment plant. I was just going to continue that down to High Plains Drive, which is where the traffic light is now, where the Ridge townhomes are. And then extend the soft surface trail connection along west side of McCaslin to Rock Creek neighborhood trail connection by Key Building. This would actually be the piece north of that, right? To take from the Key Building to the Shanshan property, correct? So those were what we had listed as our budget recommendations for this year. OSAC had their list as well. Their list also included the Hodgkin Harris Reservoir, but again, that's now been revisited and removed. They also had the soft surface trail from the water treatment plant to High Plains Drive, which we had. And then they had, what they had different than what we've had is continuing that from High Plains Drive down to the Colton Trailhead. Then they also had the soft surface trail from the Key Bank to Shanshan, so that's the same as ours. Then they had the Coyote Ridge Trail, which we had as well. The Fire Station Park Trail from Fire Station Park down to McCaslin, or down along McCaslin, Indiana. And then they also had a construct soft surface trail north of El Dorado from Indiana to McCaslin. I have a hard time understanding what they're talking about with that.
North of Eldorado from Indiana. Oh, that's the one that goes through
Are they
that park.
are they talking about
It's like
from McCaslin, Indiana down to Fire Station Park?
That would be
No,
just,
they're going here. I thought it was here.
let me see if I can find the.
Well, while you're looking for that, there was a comment on here about and bridge for the Coyote Ridge Trail. What is
And
that?
Bridge. Well, they say Coyote
Oh, that was
Ridge.
the single
Well,
trail.
yeah, I haven't mentioned that one yet because that was a bigger item, so
Okay.
we'll talk about that in a second. Because that's
Sorry.
actually,
I was reading the wrong line.
That's actually county, I think, is the problem.
Okay.
They put a county trail on their list.
There it
This
is.
trail here, the blue trail.
Blue Trail.
Which half of that trail is already covered in the K park.
Okay, yeah, so
So
I
it's
just
just-
got confused by the wording. So, all right,
It's through that little.
they
there's
wanted
a
to
little
continue
green
through that,
space.
yeah, that greenway
The
that's
green
there.
space from like Indiana over to McCaslin right there.
Can you like just go in a
But-
little closer on that?
But no matter what, I mean, once you get through there, there's not a trail
That's
at this
better.
point in time.
So that continues school parcel over to McCaslin?
Yeah. The problem with that one is if number 1 isn't built, what's the point of building 9?
That's why it's 9.
What's that?
That's why it's number 9.
Yeah.
That's why it's lower on
They,
the list.
they picked a trail that goes to nowhere, essentially.
They're optimistic, one will get built.
Well, yeah, if Calmonte finishes 2, and then, you know, there was all the regrading in there for drainage on basically right along where 1 is right now. You know, if that were to be constructed as a trail to kind of finish out the McCaslin kind of trail, that would be a viable connection to the new park.
Well, actually, so their wording on the fire station park is a little bit, I think they're referring to, and maybe we were too, referring to that whole stretch that's number 1. And then, so finally, what Corey kind of picked up on was they had a single tree to Coal Creek Regional Trail, and that was a bigger one that included complete connection with county acquiring right-of-way and installing trail and bridge. So that,
So bridge over Coal Creek? Okay.
Into-
but is that really
into Grassville
town or
Park.
is that county?
I believe it's town now, and then just next to that it'd be the developer's property,
Can you find where that's marked on this?
right here.
That's number 12?
Yep.
And that's different from where that switchback is right now?
Yeah, you would just skip the switchback and you'd access that little triangular piece at the bottom of the hill, and then it would cross over a bridge into Grasso Park. And you'd just kind of not have to worry about turning around at Town Hall or taking the switchback or getting on McCaslin.
Oh, I see.
So the question really here is when we have our leadership meeting with OSAC, which will hopefully be sometime, Sandy and I will meet with them sometime in March. We still haven't picked a date with them yet, but to discuss largely trails, I mean, that's where we mostly overlap with them at this point, is, you know, they have their list, which has 5 items that are the same, but 3 that are different. So the 3 that are different are number 4, number 12, and then if we go back down, the number 9. What do we think about those 3? I mean, if
Hold on, those are 3 that they had on theirs, but we didn't have on
that
ours?
we don't have on
Okay.
ours.
Sorry.
Not for this year. We didn't have it on our list for this year. So,
So you have 4, 12.
actually, never mind, not 4, the purple one, 11.
11.
So we had 4, they had 11, 12, and 9 are the ones that are different from our list. So what, do we have any comment on those? I mean, if OSAC is still prioritizing those, do we have any disagreement with making those a priority compared to what we've made as a priority?
I have a question. So where number 11 is, where is that going to be off the fence line, riding up and down McCaslin? How far is that going to be? Is that going to be on the fence line as you go up?
I think
How's that? Where's that going to be at? Where's that going to exactly?
So
That's the west side, right? Is that
That's the
in
west
side of
West
McCaslin.
side of McCaslin?
So,
There's probably like 50 feet there between.
so we would rely on an engineer, a trail engineer, to determine where it would go.
Where it would go.
I'd assume it'd be something similar to the east side, though.
There's
Where
a
gotta
big
be a
drainage.
buffer between the road and then the
Absolutely.
trail.
There's quite a bit of a drainage ditch on that side.
Why do
So
we even need that?
Yeah, why do we need,
Well-
why do we need number
I think that's
11 if there's
the
already a crushed trail on the
Ex-
east side of McCaslin?
Well, so this is the reason why.
And there's a crosswalk in the light. That's why
Exactly.
they put the light at the
So
ridge.
the reason why we didn't include it at this point in time was because if you build number 4 down to the traffic light will get you to the east side of the road, and then that you have the existing soft service trail that'll get you down to Colton.
Of course.
So we saw it as somewhat redundant. I mean, a few years ago, PROSTAC had been in favor of this, doing it completely down the west side, but when we kind of looked at the list more recently, we thought it was redundant.
I mean, would it be also redundant if we just took the little edge off of the Meadowlark Trail there and connected it to number 4?
That's a county, you just picked up on a county issue.
Everybody wants it, but
Those
nobody.
county people.
Yeah,
County won't let it.
because there's
That's a
the
community trail.
gate that the county
There's a
has,
gate right there, that's why.
but they won't allow access.
Those county
So
people.
we only need to do a segment of one. It'll be,
I believe
Just make a social trail there.
I believe their management plan for that, the preference is everything accesses through Colton. I believe that similar response with Shan Shan, maybe,
Oh, really?
is that their goal and don't quote me on it, but
That's the
I believe
beginning of
that's
the
their
steep
plan.
hill
Yeah.
When you're running. It's not.
Wasn't that the area that we had discussions about public works too? Being a public works.
Well,
project
and
more than
so,
being a
yes,
trail
so,
project
I mean,
Because it's a road.
PROSTAC's also talked about this in the past of these trails that run along, particularly the trails that run the length of McCaslin. These are basically the missing links of where there's no sidewalk in town. Pretty
Right.
much every other road in town has sidewalk, and this doesn't. So should we really be going to the board and saying, hey, this shouldn't be coming out of the parks budget, this should be coming out of public works?
Could we just make a sidewalk?
Whether it's soft
It's-
surface or sidewalk, it's just an issue of, is this really a parks trail, or is this a issue of public works, moving people throughout the town?
Just something to keep in mind is this will likely be funded with open space dollars, is OSAC's recommendation.
can we do just a step back? And I know we ran through all those, but just point out up here really quick, the 5 that we're matching with OSAC of our priorities.
Well, so
Just so that
Coyote,
we all are visualizing
Yeah,
the
so we
same
can all
place.
see.
sure. So Coyote Ridge, which we know, number 1.
Which is East McCaslin.
So number 1, we overlapped with Hodgkin Harris Reservoir, but again, that's pretty much
that's
going away. So, can you scroll up, Patrick? So number 4, we're in agreement on.
Okay.
Number 7, we're in agreement on.
Okay.
So Coyote Ridge, that's it. 7, 4, 1.
And 9, is that the one?
Well, we weren't in agreement on 9.
Which one was the fire station?
That's number 1.
Oh.
So those 3, Coyote Ridge and then Hodgkin Harris, those were the 5.
So essentially, from what I just saw, I mean, it looks like we're fitting out the trails along McCaslin. I mean, that's the priorities.
That seemed to be the,
The connectivity on the ridge, all the way down to Old Town, and also kind of by the K8, the new K8, but along that McCaslin run from Indiana down to Calmonte, and Calmonte was supposed to do 2 before they're done with the development, so it's just connecting what they're already putting in that development along the road.
correct.
So, I mean, quick summary, trying to understand
Yeah.
what our kind of
So-
goals are here.
But what's listed as number 11, that's one that OSAC had, but we still feel that that one's not
I think it's
necessary
redundant.
at this point.
Especially because of the traffic lights.
All right, so we can convey that. So
And we have a bike lane.
the number 9 trail. If assuming number 1 is built, how do we feel about 9? Are we in favor
Can
of
you
that?
zoom into that? I think that the number 9 trail is very deceiving because I think over half of it's going to be constructed by the K Park, and the other half is actually on the school property or along the roadway, and then it's only the segment from Indiana to McCaslin that's kind of that cut through.
And does the black line above it accomplish the same goal? Like to the north there, behind the houses?
Potentially.
The black line exists.
Right, that's my.
Right, as long as the yellow connection, there's like a little,
I'm trying to say
there's a
it's
little
redundant.
table
Yeah,
out there
okay.
with a view. So as long as that yellow line connects on the backside there,
Maybe I did.
on the south side of the ravine.
So you're
Yes.
saying, so as long as all of number 1 gets as is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if one gets added, then you have this, a similar connective path from the existing trail over there.
Right.
So sort of what's the point?
So we're basically saying we don't think it's necessary.
No.
Okay.
If one gets built, then 9 is not necessary.
I think the other thing of 9 is that it's a very small trail in the overall compared to what's shown there too. But I think it would be redundant. Because that black one's a little.
Well, yeah, I mean, all it really would be is the from Torrey's Peak to
Yeah.
Indiana, which is like,
Yes.
or to McCaslin,
25% of it.
which is, yeah, it's like maybe even less. It's like probably 20% of what's up there.
Yeah, that's the only thing. If it's,
They'd have to sell me on number 9, because I don't see the point.
Yeah, we'll need to see why they thought it was, that was necessary.
I think if we didn't have the roadway on the K Park, maybe yes. But with the roadway and the K development where it is right now, I think that it's not required.
Okay. And so then the final one would be, what was, I think, number 12 on here, which is the single tree to Coal Creek. So again, that would be somewhat completing a piece on McCaslin, but there's already sidewalk there, so this is achieving what?
I feel like this
Isn't that
one's
like a dirt
redundant, too.
It's
track
just a
up there?
crusher
and
trail,
it's-
there's no
it's-
sidewalk.
It's pretty nasty.
There's
I
no sidewalk
remember
there?
seeing right there, yeah. Sidewalks on the east side. There's
I thought
actually
the
sidewalk
was
on the east.
on the west side too.
No, it's not.
No.
It's
So
a
what's
crusher
the,
fine.
what's the black there?
It's a crusher fine
Crusher
trail.
fine. No. Black is crusher fine.
And you like, kind of, you can then
They
go
bought it.
over the bridge
Lance
there
Capital
and
bought
then
it.
circle around by Town Hall and then go under to Coal Creek Trail.
Right.
I don't really see the point of 12.
Yeah, there is no
I mean-
sidewalk
But they
on the
didn't
west.
say whether this would be soft surface or what, so if we already have a crusher fine trail there,
That it borders.
Is there
McCaslin.
What's
future
the-
for the sidewalk that stops right past the bridge, right here in front of Town Hall, to go all the way up on the west side of McCaslin, to be concrete? Or, I mean, it already is crusher fine, so what is the future is gonna be? Because you know they're gonna develop the Rogers property, so I think maybe we need to worry about number 12 at a later time to see what the developer's gonna bring in before we put any type of material down. As is looking at, from the outside, looking into a big box, why spend the money if the developer's already gonna put something there?
Or we could make the developer put in.
Exactly,
I agree.
with their money.
Daryl, you were saying something about the black thing that's already in that's nasty or it's not good?
No, I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
saying that. Peter was.
Oh.
It's a crusher fine trail. There's a switchback that you go up
Okay.
from the single tree up onto, so you're bordering McCaslin and
Right
going
at the
down.
corner.
But there's no issue with it, it's fine?
No, I think the issue really, and what they may be talking about is when you get down to Town Hall, down here, you do this really funky thing to get around and down and under
Onto
and
the
back
bridge.
onto the Coal Creek
A
Trail.
little cloverleaf type.
So a bridge would benefit it in some way, but I do think that until we know what's going in Rogers Farm, that people can figure it out. I
Well,
wouldn't put
and
it as
the
a
portion
priority.
of Coal Creek Trail right now that's on the other side, on the east side of McCaslin is not usable really. I mean, there are tons of heavy machinery out there. I tried to ride that way today and got waved off like this by the tractor drivers, so.
We can go play soccer though.
You could,
Go right on the path though.
I think they're looking at March 1st.
yeah, the bridge is done, like you, and it's not blocked off, you can go under the tunnel. And that's really nice and clean and brand new, but as soon as you get out of the tunnel on the west side of McCaslin, or the west side of 36, it's closed. They have a huge mound of dirt covering the entire trail right now.
I've heard many people comment on that.
Yeah, well, because I
About
work in
when
that
it will
building that's
open.
right there.
It's so
just above
close,
White
you
Line.
Oh, no.
like,
I know, I just want to use it. Come on, people. It's been closed for
It's
so
been-
long.
But it's supposed to be done.
I have some questions.
It was supposed
So-
to be done in October.
What's that?
Do we have more on that list? I have more questions.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're good on how our list differentiates from the OSAC list. So I think the remaining question is there anything else that we think that wasn't on our list for 2016 that we think should be a more immediate priority?
I thought in the later part of last year, we talked a lot about the Marshall Mesa connection.
Marshall
Or-
Mesa, where?
The
The tunnel
Davidson
and-
Mesa underpass.
Sorry, Davidson
Mesa?
Mesa, sorry. What did I say? I was so close.
Marshall,
Yeah.
Davidson.
Marshall. Way over there, wasn't
It's
I?
on Marshall Road.
Marshall Road.
I
the
was
Davidson
thinking the
Mesa underpass?
Marshall Road and,
Yeah.
and that connection under the trail, or under 36.
Well, they have the
Because-
tunnel built and it's now just blocked off, so.
But there was a lot of concern about safety and where people go when they get underneath there. And if they're standing at the side of the road and crossing the road, or where that connectivity comes in, as well as, I think that tied into the Dr. Cog thing and everything else, so. It's just, I thought that was a kind of a key discussion about safety.
But it's not our land. I
I
mean, we're concerned about it,
Yeah.
but it's not
But nothing
our
we can do
property,
about
we
it.
can do anything about it.
Well, and Dr.
CDOT.
Cog's not this year, that's next year, right? So it might be a little premature for us to be addressing it until that's built.
They have a
But
little
also-
stop sign there,
They have a stop sign.
though. Teeny tiny.
Okay, I wanted to bring it up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's a serious problem, but
When you come out on Baton on your bike, there is a stop sign.
Really?
Watch for it.
So-
Stream it out on the Marshall.
Patrick, what's the status of the trail that Louisville wanted to build along their property?
County had too many concerns about it, so
So that's
there's been no
dead?
progress.
Okay,
So I think the plan now is just waiting until underpass to BRT is built with the Dr. Cog grant next year.
okay. So it might just be something we have to put a pin in until Dr. Cog happens.
I just wanted to make sure we're aware of where that one stands.
Okay.
So, and on this list, 6 and 14, those are county as well.
Correct.
We can't really do anything with those.
Those have been included on recommendations to the annual county recommendations.
So 6 and 14 are definitely going in. The county's definitely putting those in.
No.
Recommendation.
No, that's
We-
two.
we
Just
re-
two put them in, or?
We recommended that they consider working with us on those projects.
But they're also not doing anything this year because of the flood. Still, they're diverting their budget to all the flood work still, right?
Can you pan up to the top half of the?
And so the same with like 8 and 15, those would those be town or would those be county?
15 would be county, 8 would be town, and if you guys kind of remember the responses we got from the feedback we got from our county recommendations is that this isn't doable because of the steepness of the old railroad grade. And then there was some pushback from the residents about having it come right here behind the homes. So one of the thoughts was, maybe doing something on 76th Street. Having a crossing here, so BRT trail would come down to the bus stop, and you could have a cross point here and maybe a continuation of a bike lane that got you over to here.
And then, just to make sure we're all updated, over on 36 on the far eastern side over there by the dam, that trail is not even, they wouldn't let us put a trail around, right?
Correct.
Number 10, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, 10.
You'd have,
Well,
you'd have
at
to
least
stop
the-
right here.
Yeah, at least the top portion up there. The bottom portion's more in the Frisbee golf area.
And then the one thing that's not on here, which we had talked about briefly last year, was whether or not just below 10 there, what's the Coal Creek, or not Coal Creek?
Rock Creek.
Rock Creek Trail. Whether or not that should be paved so that we had an access point from Rock Creek Parkway over to the US 36 bike lane. But we had decided at the time not to recommend that, but we had talked about it.
Because it was already an existing
Right.
connection, it just wasn't paved.
It's a soft
Right.
surface trail.
Yeah.
So it'd be an improvement to an
It's
existing
improvement.
trail
Instead of new access,
versus-
it's just an improvement.
Yeah, so you could ride like a road bike on it to get onto the bikeway.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we care to discuss that again this year. But like I said, we did not proceed with the recommendation last year.
From an overall proposal and recommendation, we have these trails that we have with OSAC. Is that enough for this year, or, I had heard previously that we were actually looking at spending some money on the trails this year, and therefore, is that enough of a recommendation, these top 4 or 5 or whatever?
Yeah, so OSAC will be recommending that they're recommending to the board these be built.
Okay.
So
And then
I think this is a good list to work from.
yeah.
At least a starting point, and then priority
Yeah.
order. to an
So,
extent.
like, what we would likely do is based on the committee recommendations, we'll post a RFP to try to get an engineering firm that can come in and look at each one of them, take them from the concept level that we're at now, give it the thumbs up, yes, it's doable, it's not doable. You would need a retaining wall, you would need, a creek crossing, and then put together a plan for each trail with an associated cost, and then budget the construction and the design out of open space dollars.
So this will be modified with OSAC then?
Yep.
Yeah, so when we meet with OSAC, when we have a leadership meeting with them, Sandy and I can express our concerns over the couple that we talked about that we thought aren't necessary. See if OSAC won't change their mind on removing those or adjusting those. And maybe we can get, 1 or 2 of the ones that we had that they didn't have onto their list to go forward this year.
So what's the process, I guess, after that? So you guys have a meeting, and you try to convince them or give them our rationale for the priority list, but then do they have overall say and say, no, we like our list if they chose to do that? Then how does that all come together to the board for approval?
The board asked OSAC at their dinner last week to make a recommendation on what trails they wanted built out of using open space funds. So ultimately, both committees can make a recommendation, and then the board would just need to decide which recommendation they'd like to go with.
And we can talk to the board at our dinner next
Okay.
week.
I was gonna say, because
as
my
well.
question is how does the board get the rationale, for, we didn't like this trail because of these things,
Mhm.
right? That doesn't come into these, to our recommendation unless we had to do it over dinner or something, so.
Well, yeah, and the issue we have is, you know, OSAC's getting a say because they're potentially spending open space funds on them. But for the most part, these trails have nothing to do with open space. They're in the town's developed open space. They're more, you know, they're not in natural open space. So to not include, for the board not to include PROSTAC in any type of recommendation I don't think this committee would agree with that. Because it really is in our purview to have some say here.
Well, and the boards, I think they've already stated more than once that they want OSAC and PROSTAC, you know, both recommendations. And, you know, the more we're combined on the same recommendation, the more the board's supporting it, where if we're at odds with 3 of these, you know, they may question too why we are at odds.
Okay. So, I mean, what we can do is we'll have the meeting with OSAC, depending on when that falls. I guess the following PROSTAC meeting we'll discuss and decide whether we need to make a recommendation to the board. All right, moving on to item number 5, the amenity priority list. So we talked about how we're gonna actually try to adopt the same method for the 5-year trails plan as the amenity priority list. So some of you who haven't done the amenity priority list might have some idea of how we do this, but basically we have our list of amenities that you know, PROSTAC feels should go in somewhere in the town. It gets sent, that list gets sent out as a spreadsheet to the committee by email. Each member sends back their list that does 3 things. List your top 3, list everything with either a high, medium, or low ranking, and then you mark the say top 3 that you would like to see done in the next year or this year. You send your list, you individually send your list back. The PROSTAC chair will take those, combine them, and come back with a combined list that says this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And then we'll discuss it at that point. So obviously haven't sent the list out by email yet. What we just want to do this evening is, are there any amenities on last year's list that we would like to remove? And are there any amenities not on that list last year that we would like to add? So if everyone wants to just take a minute to look at it.
Does this already take off some of the things that were constructed?
Well, yeah, exactly.
or
So,
slated to be?
so now a number of these things can probably come off because they're going to go into the school parcel park this year. A number of others can at least get an asterisk next to them because they're going to go into parcels 1 and 2 at Town Center, which there is actually a column on here, I think, that says
Yep,
whether or not they're going to be covered in either Town Center or the school parcel. So that can get updated based on the most current information. Because those essentially can be, we don't want to eliminate them yet because they haven't been physically
Right.
built, but at least we could have a notation of these are likely to happen in the next 1 or 2 years because they're slated for one of those parks.
So is there a potential for a write-in candidate if we socialize with the group, say, hey, you know, I was reading this and I had an epiphany with this thing. Would you guys, you know, I'd like to write this in mine and let you guys know that I want to write this in so that everybody at least has a chance to include it in theirs. Can we do that?
Yeah, I mean, if you know something now, let's write it in. If you don't know it now, then
Yeah.
yes. I mean, when the list goes out, you could send an email reply to the group and say, you know, I like this, and if you have a link or something,
Okay.
send it to everyone, and it can be added as a write-in.
For sure.
Is there any like more definition in some of these things? Like, I'm looking at number 12, teen amenity with features that appeal to females.
You asked.
So that one got added, that one
I
got
don't even know what that
added
means.
within like the last year or two. And it was, yeah, it was one of these things where we would like a teen amenity that would appeal to girls, but we didn't have a specific idea.
No, it was easy to come up with for boys, a skate park, or, there were a lot of things that were very appealing.
Things that they can
to-
kill themselves with real easy, yeah.
Yeah.
Trees to fall out of.
Yeah.
Big dollhouse.
So
Being sarcastic.
I think the
Like,
joke was,
what
what
the
a
heck,
teen
why are we
amenity for
gender-
girls
why are
is
we
there
putting
other than
gender
a
in there at
shopping
all?
mall. That was the,
Oh.
I think that
Wow.
was the
We're not
joke.
taking the Target approach and having gender neutral?
A little bit, I don't know. I don't think skateboarding is limited to boys.
It's not, but I think more boys do it than girls.
Yeah.
Well, what's an example of an outdoor sport that more girls do than boys?
Softball.
That's the exact,
That was why-
that's why this doesn't have a
Softball,
specific
volleyball,
example
right.
tied to it, because we never came up with one.
Volleyball?
Yeah, I like volleyball, come on.
But, we're gonna have a sand volleyball court that's added into the school parcel park, and there is already one in town. So, yeah, that was a challenge.
So that's maybe something that we could cogitate on and send to the groups, hey.
Yeah, if anyone can come up with an idea for teen amenities,
so-
whether they're boy or girl, we've
Yeah,
had a
you could probably
struggle.
take out
Whammy.
or girl for sure, but.
How about
Right.
several park benches to allow them to text?
Wi-Fi.
Town Wi-Fi, that could be the teen, the teen amenity, parks,
That's any teen amenity.
Wi-Fi in parks.
Fingernail painting area.
I'll tell you, if this group can figure that out, we're all gonna go on a roadshow and become millionaires by just telling other parks and rec agencies throughout the world how to do it.
Fingernail painting just says you should have some easels set up in various parks.
That would be cool. I would actually love
I mean, come on.
One of the park, the links that I sent that had the cool, like the skateboard thing on it, there was like a teen hangout area, and it actually looked kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know, no teens ever hang out at the teen hangout area at Founder's Park. I mean, I never see them.
Well,
Where's the teen
and keep in mind, I
Where
mean,
the-
so far, we've only talked about essentially outdoor amenities. The town is now talking about the 40,000 square feet or up to 40,000 square feet in the town center for civic space. I mean, if hopefully PROSTAC gets some say, into what we think should go in there, we could certainly say that some type of teen amenity, some type of, game room or something could go in there, so then we're not just talking about outdoor teen amenities, we could be talking about an indoor teen amenity in the near future, so.
So, follow-up question is this something that we just, that came up and said, hey, we have all these things that look like we have more, male usage than female, and said, maybe we can try to brainstorm ideas to try to involve more of the teen girls, or has it been brought up to our attention that there's just not quite enough to involve them? How did this whole thing come about? I just want to know, I mean, is this something, is it tangible, or is it something that we perceive as maybe could become an issue?
I
It's
believe
more
the
perception.
gender perception was brought forward by the board
Okay.
during the Founder's Park discussion.
Free cell phone stations?
But a lot of these items have been brought up in community involvement and requests.
So they have been brought up by the public? at some
Yeah,
point.
these were, I mean, doesn't this go back to that whole survey that was done a couple of years ago? A lot of these things, I mean, a lot of these pieces are still kind of tying back to that.
This
to an extent.
predates
This-
that pretty
Yeah,
significantly.
this priority list, it rolls from year to
From the
year.
master plan.
But-
And so a lot of these are amenities that the town, has been on the town's wish list for
Yeah.
Years and years and
years.
Daryl's right. These are master plan. A lot of these are master plan driven.
And some came from the comprehensive plan,
Yeah.
which drove the master
Yeah.
plan, but, yeah.
So I see that the indoor pool was carried over. Is there
That'd be
potential to partner with those people who came and met with us a few months ago about an indoor pool space at town center?
Anybody's ever,
No?
yeah, where you stand on it.
That was just a really pretty picture and no money.
Well, I mean, the town board is still talking about what the options to cover the north pool.
I think it's,
Which, by the time you cover the north pool, you're gonna spend more than building a brand new one.
Go
And
make that argument to the town
I
board.
mean, I've
But
dealt
they
with all
keep
this
kicking
stuff
this-
for years.
They keep kicking this can back
So,
to staff. I mean,
We just not to digress too much. So
For the squirrel.
we're at 3.5 million to cover the existing north pool and just shy of 6 to build a new one.
And could we build an Olympic-sized new one and attract other people to make revenue for town instead of using like our tiny
Yep.
north pool?
So the 6 million version would be your competitive indoor pool.
But is that just the pool with lockers and mechanical support
That's
and all
it.
that?
Just the
Not
pool.
the gym and
Nope.
the weights and all the other additional
Just
pieces?
a
right?
standalone
Right.
8-lane, 25-meter aquatics facility with
Right.
changing
Could we
rooms.
combine the indoor pool with the community meeting space to make it more palatable to the town?
This is just
You just have to need your
Propose.
swimsuit.
You could do that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're starting to talk about a
That's about 10 million.
community center or a rec center.
Right. But I mean, when I think about how packed out the Louisville Rec Center is on a daily basis with the swimmers and people walking around their indoor track and using their weight rooms and the senior center piece of it, I mean, you have to park like all the way at the back of the parking lot on a daily basis at lunch. So I think that could be a source of revenue for the town if we did it right.
In all honesty, Jay can come off the list probably because we're gonna have a community room in the ice rink in what, like a month, right?
Two community rooms.
But that's where, I mean,
have you guys ever talked about a splash pad?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
What's the price on that?
They're
Like as much as
comparable
a
to a
pool.
pool.
We're talking like $500,000, what, $250,000?
No, you're 2 million.
2
2 to
million
3.
for a splash pad?
Yeah.
wait, are you talking like a splash pad, like a
Splash pad.
10 by 10 with little jets?
Yeah.
Or are you talking like?
No,
you know,
we were
30
kind of
by
looking
30,
at, no, it was kind of the
outdoor?
10 by 10, a little bit bigger.
I thought they were 200,000. I didn't
Yeah,
think
I
they were
didn't
that
remember
much.
being
No,
that
you
much.
have to do the pump system just like you do for a swimming pool. It has to be treated water.
Sand filters, all that.
Yeah,
So like
sand
on
filters
Pearl
or
Street
UV.
Mall, they have a little 10 by 10 little splash pad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was, and
It
then,
just has a little
yeah,
fountain.
Just a little bit too.
Just 2 million.
yeah.
You could get your earners out there.
It comes up at every park that we put in.
It comes up.
Town center was a big discussion.
It's been up, yeah, it's been up
Still's out there for town
school
center.
parcel. Yeah, it's still out there for town
I
center.
think I think we could use one.
I think parents like it too because they don't have to supervise their kids as closely as they do with the regular pool.
That's right.
You can't trip and fall and land in water.
I will say that
Can
you're
slip.
starting, you
You
are
can
starting to
slip.
see those lawsuits.
The drowning people?
Yep.
How do you drown
The
in a
slipping
splash
people.
pad?
The slipping
The
and
slipping
Slipping and
people I get,
falling.
but the drowning people?
slipping and the low-level drowning on splash
That's
pads.
interesting.
Yeah. The
I know
ingestion of
City
water.
of Longmont has 3 of them, 4 of them.
Yeah.
During the summer, they're packed
They're
all
packed.
the time. Packed.
Well, it also comes down to being a destination.
Downtown Louisville there.
Because
Yeah,
I'll
there's-
drive to Louisville, that
Yeah,
old,
I don't know what it's called, but it's.
just,
That's called community
just on the
park.
south end of
Yeah, by
downtown
the dog
Louisville.
park.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
that's
one.
their community park.
Community park. Would it,
They're awesome. They get used wherever you put them. They get used.
that'd be something to look into?
Okay.
If the money's there for the budget?
Well, anything can be added to the list. Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying, you can do a write-in on this list and, or we can,
I mean, yeah, we can add splash pad for sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
who would vote for it? I mean,
Should have added that to the K8.
So-
I think we had it.
I mean,
have enough to
in all
spend.
honesty, the most logical place at this point is town center.
Yeah, I think.
So, I mean,
Town
is,
center, absolutely.
Water play feature.
Yeah.
100, 500.
This was, and I believe this was to add to South Pool.
to add?
Oh, so you already had the existing pumps and everything, so you use those sand filters?
Yeah.
It's the sand filters, I think, that are super expensive.
Yeah, or UV. Yeah. And then there's the,
It's an amenity
Yeah.
for female users. Place where you can ignore your parents.
So in that whole list, is there a rec center?
I
Because
just-
I've seen it
I just
in
wrote
master
that.
plans for like, oh, you did?
Yeah.
Recreational.
I mean,
For the
that-
last 10 years.
the-
I've seen
That
it,
one's the
so-
best
I mean, that's the thing, is a
3.5
rec
to 10
center is almost a separate, because that would be
10 years
Yeah.
ago.
a combination of amenities.
Right.
Itself is an amenity, it's a combination of amenities.
Yeah, it includes the community center, it includes the indoor pool, it includes the rec center.
Yeah, you would be
Everything.
taking any number of the indoor performance space, the indoor pool, the community meeting room, I mean, all that stuff could go in a rec center.
Question I have is, so when we start, ranking these things, one thing I'm gonna consider, whether I'm supposed to or not, is, well, how much money do we have available? Because if I see something on here that is,
Don't take into account costs.
so we don't have to worry about costs at all, and
There-
assume that the cost could just show up?
There's cost estimates on most of these things, but no, you really shouldn't be considering costs. This is like the town's wish list.
So how does
If
it work?
money is no object,
Okay, so
what
how
is
does
the,
it- How does it work if the town says only has a certain budget? And then do they keep going down the list until they find something within that budget and say, oh, that's what we get?
I mean, it's not even as specific as that. I mean, but that's the general idea, is that we work off this list every year, so if we were to look at a new park,
But you look
we're
at,
gonna pick off of the top of the list, and then you're gonna talk about
What I'm
costs.
trying to get at though is, say that every year we keep doing something, and I don't know because I haven't been here, that we keep doing something that's somewhere, 500, I'm just making a number, $500,000 in the list every year, right? Well, if we didn't do it for 2 years, you might be able to get something bigger off the list than something, than keep getting these smaller things because you're not pulling your money, right? I mean, does that happen?
I see your point, I see your point,
Yes.
where you're going with that.
And like Purple Park Pavilion is a good example of that. That was something that where we basically didn't spend any money on for like 2 or 3 years in hopes that that would get built.
but also,
And, I mean, eventually this year it is supposed to be built.
but you also look at it like, this is a amenities list that when now a developer comes in and is looking at building out and parcel 1 and 2, it's, the developer is also like, okay, what do you want as a community
Okay.
that we're gonna provide for you when we develop this out? So parcel 1 and 2 are parks that, this is our wish list, and a developer is gonna build us a park, and we don't have X, Y, and Z, but we want a large multi-purpose field with lights, we want, a library, we want, a community meeting room. They can integrate that into the discussion with the developer, and that's how we're getting the meeting room and the 40,000 square feet. So they know that we had a requirement or a need for this or a want, and now as long as we have a list, at least there's something that they can kind of pull from to help guide them.
So I guess then, what may
And that's why-
satisfy the question I have is there something, statement that we send along with this amenities list saying, hey, here's our list, and, no kidding, we would be willing to wait in some of these as PROSTAC to get some of the bigger ticket items later on if we could? Is that something that we actually can include in the recommendation if we agreed, I mean?
Well, it's more of an internal working document.
Okay.
It's not, so it's more for us to refer back to whenever asked, for a recommendation
Okay.
on amenities for any specific location. We can go back as
All right, so-
PROSTAC and say, this is what we had prioritized for this year.
No, I understand now. So we could, if they came and asked us, say, hey, find something for this much, we could make a recommendation to pick something off the list or whatever we decided to say, well, can we wait till next year? And that makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
Okay.
And the list also came about too because every year there was the CTF fund, is that what it was called? Which was $100,000.
CTF.
It was money that came from
Conservation Trust Fund,
Conservation
good lottery.
Trust. And so there was that money to spend every year, and so,
4 parks, had to go 2
Right.
parks.
Yeah.
so that was part of, where this list also came from as well.
But do you have to use that money, or do you lose it, or can you
No,
save it?
you can roll conservation trust funds for a limited amount of time,
Okay.
And the only thing CTF can't be used for is like staffing and certain types of maintenance. But you could use CTF trails, like
Gotcha.
Ron's saying, it's kind of it's gotta be a outdoor park trail type of open space amenity.
Gotcha. So like crusher funds to rebuild
Yeah.
the trail,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
use that. Gotcha.
Yep, so the
Understand.
CTF funds, this year, we're now, the town's up to, because the lottery's been good, up to about 120,000 a year. And that cost, 35,000 of that goes to this group for playground enhancements, which was the shade structures for last year. And then the remaining amount for this year and next year go to the El Dorado Park. So about 85,000.
And last year's money went to purple, or not? The
Last-
pavilion?
No, actually,
Last
purple
year's
ended up
money
coming out of
went,
general fund.
35,000 of last year's money went to buy the 3 shade structures. And then,
Well, because we held on to Purple Park Pavilion hoping that we could pay for it through that fund. I got paid for it, doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
yeah, because right
Well,
now, yeah.
in the end, that's getting paid out of general fund, or
It's getting
like
paid out of general
your update item said, it could get paid out of that
Yeah.
contractor
Right.
convention or
And
whatever.
then kind of how it's currently planned in the 5-year budget, because the budget's obviously just getting a whole lot tighter. Some of our tree and plant material replacement in 17 and 18, and some of just the trail upkeep will get paid out of, right now it's slated to be paid out of the Conservation Trust Fund, just because we don't have the pool of general fund dollars like we used to.
Well, and it's interesting to note, just looking at this list right here, I mean, volleyball, adult fitness, play tables, those are the 3 that we just, are adding to K-8 as a, they're on this list, there's something that the community wanted for a while, so.
Yeah, so,
Given the discussion, I'm actually good with the list as is, including the things that you noted down to add onto it.
mhm. Yes, so what I'll do is I'll update the list to mark off what's going to be going into school parcel and town center, add the couple items, and then, in a week or 2, email this out to the group, and then hopefully we can get everyone's responses prior to the March meeting. And then we'll have the combined list to discuss at the March meeting.
On this list, did we have the Coyote Ridge Trail? I mean, because I think the one thing that we've talked about
Not
a little bit
specific.
around is like actually bolstering the actual mountain biking trails.
But doesn't it say it does not include trail projects because these are amenities, not trails?
But as an amenity, I mean, I'm thinking, more like
Like
Valmont
signage
Park,
or-
where you actually have some rocks and some like features to the trails. You know what I mean? So that, whether that's at the, kind of around by the other, by the Frisbee disc, I can't remember the name of that park.
Oh,
Autry.
pump track?
Autry. But by the Autry, there's the bike trails, the bike features over there.
Yeah, the pump
Whether that's
track.
something within that pump track area, or if that's something that could be added to the Coyote Ridge Trail,
Mhm.
that makes it more of a bike feature trail, with some,
More
there's a
interesting
walking
instead of
trail,
dirt.
but, next to it, there's some boulders or a log or something that you ride over.
Mhm.
That's what could enhance that trail and make it more of a
Yeah.
biker-friendly,
Good idea.
multiple level biking, similar to the Valmont Park that's in Boulder. But that's more of an amenity, whether or not that's something we can easily just add into the trails, that's more of a add-on.
And to your
like
point,
this.
we could have sort of like a green, blue, and black level.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely.
So there's, small boulders for small people and big boulders for
And then the 10-foot drop-offs are not for
Right.
me, is that what you're?
It says full face helmet required.
But that enhances that experience, and it's an amenity, not just a trail.
Totally agree.
Yeah,
Pat, a
and
question for you about this pool structure cover that they're still
Uh-huh.
heavily involved in right now. Is it still under the concept that those tennis courts are gonna have to go?
No, this would be just keep the tennis courts as is, but don't cover them. The enclosure doesn't include the,
No, originally they discussed the posts were gonna have to be
yeah.
taking care of 2 of the courts.
Nope, this would all fit within the existing footprint minus some, that natural landscaping in
It'd be
there.
a permanent structure, not a seasonal structure.
It would be a retractable,
So during the summer, you could.
Glass.
move it.
yep, you'd slide it open.
cool. But originally, that was being talked about as $1 million. You're saying it's 3.5 now?
Right, because you figure just the structure has always been 1 million, always, from the get-go. So with the board's latest direction was to figure out if the facility itself and the pump room itself could operate a pool year-round. So you'd have to add heating, HVAC, you'd have to expand your locker rooms, you'd have to do different controls at the front desk. So it'd basically be covering the pool, modifying the building and pump room to make it work, plus adding HVAC heating.
Okay.
So like I said, we're about 3.5 to cover existing north pool, one-time cost. We're a little more than $500,000 annually to operate it. And then $6 million one-time cost to build new pool and, $500,000-ish.
That's
to
a
operate.
$500,000 on top of the
Annual operation.
whatever it is, like 100,000 now, or because what's the seasonal pools are what, like 150,000 for both pools?
North, just north.
Just north is
that
150?
150 to 160,000, not counting capital expenses.
So that would be, the 500 would be in addition to the 150
No,
or
it'd be-
total?
It was just a quick wagon trying to stretch the operation out over
Okay.
12 months. And then the assessment also included things like we'd bring on a full-time maintenance tech and a head pool supervisor. So those costs are lumped in there.
And staff then.
Yeah, staff's lumped in there. And then the number they gave us for staffing was probably like 15. We need kind of a rotation of 15 lifeguards.
Could we
And
hire
then-
an external staffing company, like a pool management company that does like some local pools around here instead of us?
Yeah, the town has actually done that, and they're definitely out there.
Yeah.
They're out there. The board has gone away from it. The Y used to manage the pools, and then there was another group kind of interim. And but yeah, absolutely, there are groups out there that can do it.
Just wondering if we could save costs and headache by contracting it.
Yep.
Can you scroll up a minute?
Yeah. So if you remember, A was Monarch Little League had mentioned they were interested in splitting the cost on batting cages, but that's been around for 3 or 4 years now and hasn't really gone anywhere, but it did get added to the list.
Anything, any further discussion with the new owner of the Horizons regarding that beach use?
Nope, nothing.
Parcel 1, was it gonna have a baseball field?
No.
Or it was?
We showed
there was
the-
one that fit.
Yeah, we
but
showed
wasn't
that
a-
it would
Showed
fit.
that it could
But you
fit.
can't have a backstop down there because
Right.
it's in the
But it would
floodway.
have no infrastructure like
Right.
the, like Huffman Field does.
Sorry, I just saw it up there on the list.
Yeah. It was just the representation that you could do like a little guy pickup game down there.
All right. So we'll get this out, like I said, between this meeting and March. So item number 6, the school parcel park additions. So at the board's last meeting, they adopted the list of 8 amenities that we had recommended for adding to the school parcel park. So we just want to briefly take a look and see if we can come up with some more specific recommendations on some of the equipment, namely the outdoor fitness equipment and the play equipment that, we had said an outdoor fitness cluster, and we had said swings and the addition of at least one more piece of play equipment. But
I'll let you guys drive while I type, so I wanna make
that
sure
was
I get it
left.
all in there.
Oh.
But that was left open-ended as far as what specific equipment might go in there, so we can discuss that. I know that Corbett had some comments on specific pieces of fitness equipment.
Yeah, I mean, so just to put it in perspective,
Control.
so my wife's a personal trainer and used to do corporate fitness for several years, so we just kind of talked with her what type of fitness equipment was the most recommended or the most used when they did these outdoors type stuff. And the list that I recommended came from her background. So I figured that'd be a good list to look at and start with.
Do you remember off the top of your head what the, I'd have to go back.
I'd have to
look
go
at
back
the
and
email.
look. But a lot of the stuff that she recommended actually
That's cool.
was multi-use. It says this for one thing, but they were able to use it for faceted. So it says you could use it for an upper body, but then they would also use it for other intended uses as well.
Sorry, there was a lot of emails in that string.
Yeah. But mine was one of the earlier ones too, so I'm sure it got
Got buried.
Yeah.
In a hurry.
All right, so Corbett, you had said parallel bars,
Yep.
step-up station, push-up bar, and then you had said distance markers on the sidewalk.
As a parallel bar was a good one that she had specifically talked about because, again, you think parallel bars and you think, okay, well, you use it for upper body and you walk over, kind of have your arms straight and you go over it. But you routinely use it where you could kind of do a modified pull-up from underneath it. So it's one of these things where you can do multi-use out of one type of fitness equipment instead of just single use.
Well, I'm not driving this very far here.
So the idea is that we're recommending equipment, is that what?
Yeah.
Is that what we're doing?
So, I mean,
I mean,
Do we have it in the budget to have equipment that's
What?
not just the stationary equipment?
what are the packets, like, what are the packages?
Can we have
Park
more
package
things
one,
that are
park
like
package
these
two.
mobile pieces of equipment? It seems to me those they would attract people who may not be total fitness
Yeah.
gurus as opposed to, it might attract some folks who are a little more sedentary and hopefully get them to move up to.
Wheelchair accessible units.
The initial WAG that ECI threw out there was something similar to what you just saw up above, which is that fitness cluster.
That's cool.
Well, yeah, and so, look, it's got a vertical press, lat pull down, chest press,
Are those
an
permanent?
elliptical.
Connected, or are they? How do if they're not permanently in place? How do you
No,
ensure
they're,
that they don't
I mean,
disappear?
they're mounted.
No, they're,
full mounted.
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll be.
I was just curious because
Like
I'm
bolted
saying
into
mobile
concrete.
stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. Mobile.
Yeah, like the
like elliptical.
like the two-person cross-country ski is an operable, movable, kind of unit. More of like a non-motorized elliptical.
Okay.
But they would all come
Permanent fixtures.
permanent. Yep.
Okay.
Posted in, and then the board hasn't wanted to see crusher fines in this park, so the thought would be that this would be a concrete pad.
Gotcha.
Jumbotron
Wheelchair
somewhere so we can
accessible
watch TV
unit.
while we work out.
This is getting
Actually,
really.
oars.
No, we can't because it would have noise
Sorry.
involved. We have to be
Actually-
very, very quiet up
Sorry,
there.
I'm so
remember?
sarcastic,
Except
it's
for the-
terrible.
There was some
except
great
for the
music of
siren.
park instruments, and I thought, oh, wrong park for
Oh, I want the rower.
I did look.
Like,
Well,
are there,
I'd like
are there
to
prices?
find
Do we need to
that.
pick what we like? I
that. There
don't.
you can.
There
Do we have to show how this fits
Yeah,
in?
one of everything?
There is
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the issue is, I mean, how many pieces do you think we're talking about here?
Because
Is there a small circuit too? Because this one's listed as large circuit.
Well, it's 14, yeah, 14 to.
14 units up to 33 users.
Up to 30.
There was another park package. 9 units up to 25 users. I think people would think this was super cool when we did it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like something like this looks pretty good.
It's not like the power course from the 80s where you had like, you know, a bench where you could do sit-ups and a pull-up bar.
Yeah.
And then you ran around a crusher track.
Got to know.
The only,
This is much better.
the only thing I wonder is, would people really use the cross-country ski, or would they rather see like the elliptical?
So,
Could we customize the kit that we got?
well, I guess what I was gonna say is,
I'm sure you could.
can we get them to give us a recommended thing, then we look at those and say, okay, we like this except for that one piece or this other piece. Can we switch it out with one thing? Instead of all of us trying to figure out all the equipment, can we get a recommendation of, you know, whether it's large or small, and say, this is the most common equipment that people ask for, and then we can look at that and maybe
And
switch out
maybe
onesie twosies.
allow the piece of property that we're gonna put this on to dictate the number of pieces of equipment we get, so whether it's the large or medium circuit.
Or is it cost that's gonna dictate that?
Well, it's a little bit of all of it. So we're construction starting in the next couple days, and
Mhm.
these guys are.
This is 28 by 50.
Yep.
So that's probably plenty.
That's
Yeah.
easily fitting. I mean, when I looked at the plan, sorry, when I did send a little plan that actually
Yep.
sketched all this out. But if you look at just the gazebo up on the, I don't know, what is that, the southeast corner? That gazebo is like probably 120 by, I
You're
don't know,
probably
like
looking
40.
at a similar area to that, I would think.
That's 40 feet right there. So that's got to be another 40, well, maybe 100.
So how big is the spot that we're gonna stick this for?
Well, I mean, I'm just, saying that.
Well, we don't
I
know
think-
exactly, but.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
That
so
isn't as
it-
as big as you think it is when you look at the size of that park.
Yeah, so that's, once we get kind of a good grasp, I mean, we're kind of, I don't want to say we're back to kind of square
You
one,
could do.
but the park's definitely going to go through some redesign.
I think this would be a sweet addition to the park.
And that's an overlook.
But the board wants it in. I think we come up with the features we want, and then at this point, we leave it up to the civil engineer to figure out how it's going to fit in there.
Why do we wanna
Working
leave it up to them?
with,
Come on.
the irrigation and the drainage plans.
One thing that's really cool about this, it's like a full body workout. You can see they have the little
Muscle
muscle
groups.
groups highlighted, and I think people would totally groove on the cross country thing.
Can we look at the large one again?
Keep going down. Does it have a layout? Yeah, at the very bottom.
So
That
this
was like
one's a
40
60
by
by
60.
36.
Wow. 36 by 60.
And then they have the recommended distances in between the equipment, so you don't run into each other.
Yep. Right.
I don't know, I think I'm fine with either option, depending on how much space we have to work with.
Are these, yeah, they're all wheelchair accessible. A couple of them are.
Yep.
But to Corbett's point, like, we should negotiate with these guys to swap out pieces of equipment here and there if we, depending upon how much space we get. Because there may be some things in the large one that we want in the small one that we can't get, or vice versa.
So do you have this drawing somewhere?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the bigger one, not in the small one, I think there was some, like the rower or the stair climber, the elliptical, those weren't in the
Yeah.
smaller one.
But this one, I think, literally covers every muscle group in a person's body. You wouldn't need to go to.
Well, yeah, it says it
Workout
covers
Park.
lower body, upper body, back, quads, and calf, and cardiovascular.
We could have our own muscle beach.
That's right. Town of Superior, everyone's ripped. Sun's out, guns out.
They say.
You know that there's probably, someone's gonna
Shirts
probably
required.
gonna do like an outdoor fitness class out
Does this
there.
thing need
Totally.
to be, does it need to be covered?
It said in the little disclaimer that they require no maintenance and that they can be in any weather condition.
Louisville's got them over by the rec center.
That'd be
in there.
awesome. Workout in
Arboretum or
Arboretum.
whatever.
That's
it's
right.
called.
could just see that
I'm
happening.
gonna go outside and pump some iron.
You guys got me excited now.
It'd be totally cool.
So,
I love
Patrick,
it.
should we just say in our notes that we favor package 2, and if the space is allowed, we can add or subtract pieces of equipment?
Well,
Yeah,
also
I think the
price of this.
That the board wants all these items in, so I'm not sure prices.
No, but I mean,
Like Marcus
is there, a-
just
Well, the estimate you had given them
You
in
said
the
it
packet
was
was
how much?
around 45,000.
This, I think they were kind of
right?
between the 40 and 55,000 range,
Yeah.
For either package?
minus the concrete,
Just the
Yeah.
equipment.
just the equipment.
So you gotta pour the
and that
slab
was,
in.
Yeah.
do you know if it was one of these packages or?
Yeah, I think we were kind of based off of the bigger package there.
Really?
Go bigger one.
From what I remember looking at these before, so, you know, say it's 2,000
2,000
apiece.
pieces times 10 pieces, that's
I
fine.
think that's 20.
So I
you
think you're
get 20
probably with
pieces.
concrete, you know, we have the sub-X up there, which is the other kind of issue
this
with this
is
park.
14 pieces.
Probably in that $65,000 range.
For the pad and the equipment, or just?
Yeah, pad and the equipment.
And some of them are probably more than
Yeah,
2,000, like I'm
super
guessing
awesome.
like that cross-country.
It all depends on how big the pad is.
Okay.
That's your price of your concrete at $140 a yard
Yeah.
right now.
All right, so that's the outdoor fitness equipment.
The only thing I would say though, is on top of, just keep going. With the outdoor equipment though, is also, it seems like that's very clustered really tight. And it's a question of, you know, how organic do you want it to be and more integrated to the park? Because it's like, that's like, all the pieces are 5 feet apart. And it's like, is this something that's a group of 4 over here and a group of 4 over there? Or is it all 20 pieces right in one spot? Where, you know, if you wanted to, you're kind of moving around a little bit more, but I don't know, that's just a question of how it all fits in.
Yeah, and I'd have to go back and watch that last meeting, because I think, I don't remember if it was Trustee Pennington, or there was the idea of keeping it as a cluster, but I don't remember which group that came
They
from.
said,
Right, I just-
the conversation went
Freestyle.
some to the effect of that when they were polling folks, that they had an overwhelming response to keep it all in one localized
one
area
lo-
instead of separating it out.
Okay, I couldn't remember,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to double check.
I don't remember, yeah.
Yeah,
But that's a,
yeah,
Looks like kids would be all over it.
all over it.
So, just talking about swings. When I had talked to Patrick before, we had kind of talked, well, if you just did like a more standard swing set, 4 wide, you could probably get like 2 regular swings, a toddler swing, and a handicap swing. This wouldn't be what we were talking about, the additional piece of play equipment, because we could talk about, then you could start talking about raft swings or something for the additional play equipment. But this would just be like just the swing set we're talking about right now. I mean, what are people's thoughts on that? Do we want to go with the traditional swing set?
What is
No.
the handicap
No.
swing set?
no.
Is it a ramp for a wheelchair? How mobile is it for the disability impaired? How mobile is it? That's what you gotta look at.
Yeah.
It's like this.
And everybody, no.
Like- This one, arch swing, the Kid Builder's arch swing, I mean,
Yeah.
exclusive
Inclusive
seat.
seat, yeah.
Inclusive
There's
seat.
one at Community Park.
They have swings for wheelchairs. If
Yep.
people can't get out of wheelchairs that lift off the ground.
Or for the whole chair.
Or for the whole chair,
For the whole
exactly,
chair.
for the whole chair. And I
No,
think we
that's-
should look into that.
That's different.
Yeah, no, I think,
I think we definitely need to look into that. for
and they
sure.
also have them, I think they have a version of that exact same chair that you can also put an individual who's not in a wheelchair in there, and then have a parent or
A guardian or
a
something.
guardian across from them in that same unit. And then if you needed the wheelchair space, you could put the individual in their wheelchair in there.
That's right. I think we definitely need to look into
And
that.
it's a bit of a dual purpose
That's cool.
kind of swing. They're pretty cool.
And access will be good from someone in a wheelchair would be able to get in. and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we would definitely design that.
Yeah.
They
Design
would
it in.
probably do like Community Park where you have a poured in place ramp up to the swing, right?
That'd be cool.
Look
So
into
literally,
it.
you don't have to get, it like hooks onto your chair.
Hooks onto your chair.
Yeah.
And you don't have to get out. You just, it hooks onto the chair, it comes off the ground. Patrick's right, they have a seat that goes across for any type of disability. It doesn't matter what your disability is, and it swings. And I think maybe we should definitely look into that.
Could it hook onto a bicycle?
I don't know. I don't know.
I like the idea of
You want to
swings
engineer
that are
it, you can't
non-traditional.
make millions.
So I like that one, that freestyler,
So-
and I like George's idea about
Oh, that's
one that's
awesome.
like super handicap accessible.
So a wheelchair
even-
swing.
even the
Drive
tire
something
swings.
different.
Dude, I think the zip line thing is pretty sweet too.
Well, I mean, yeah,
That's a
we,
different part, right?
we,
Yeah, you got-
we
we
also
still
had
got
on
that
there an
item,
additional
yeah.
piece of play equipment, so we can talk about like the zip line separately, but, so if we had a wheelchair swing, I mean, we would still want to have something for more general use.
Yeah.
So what,
Yeah.
what do we
What-
think there?
I like that freestyler that was down there below.
Yeah, the
I like the
freestyler's cool.
freestyle and the tire swing.
I was gonna say, what if we included the inclusive seat and the Mirage seats together, so it was less like, because they look pretty similar, but one is definitely for disabled use and one is for, like more of the general population.
Which one was
At
that?
the top, scroll up a little bit, the Mirage seat, that little guy
gray
is
one
on.
then?
It sort of looks like
That one.
an X-Wing seat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
it's
it's
got
for-
the multi-function.
It's multi-function, so it's for kids who need it, you know, who are disabled and kids who aren't.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet, it looks like it could be a Star Wars.
Anyone
Star
can use
Wars
it.
thing, yeah.
And then you could have a whole bunch of those with, you know, only a couple that have safety harnesses for kids who needed it.
But,
Then you
I mean,
have
as
that-
far as space, we have to keep space into consideration here. If we did a wheelchair swing, we'd probably only get like one of these and that's it, right?
Robin, we can determine how big of a play pit we want, as long as we stay
As long as
under,
there's room.
as long as we stay under the $3 million budget.
But we don't want to, remember,
Use yard.
when we don't want to cut too much into the grass area in adding any of these amenities. So it's
How
not
big of a-
like we want to have a huge swing pit.
How big of a grass area are we looking to have? Are we wanting to have a full-size soccer field out there?
Well, I think that a lot of these things can fit around the perimeter of the
Sure.
circle.
I saved that file.
I mean, this is just the latest
It was what-
online that
I
I
think
could
it-
find of the contract document.
When
so-
they had placed the field size over, what was it, like a U12 or something like that?
Okay.
So I sent this to you guys, but it's more than anything, don't pay attention to where anything's placed, but this was the latest construction document that I could find online of the K-8 park.
Sure.
So, but no matter what, you can see that the path goes around here. And like this right here is probably about 100 feet by 40 feet wide. And that's just that little
It's
pavilion.
a big park,
So that means like this.
12.6 acres.
yeah.
Yeah, and just looking at the grades and things like that, I think that we can fit a lot of this in there. But yeah, when you get over to the western side, you're either cutting into the slope or, you know, how does it fit into the grade? But, you know, you're right. I mean, how much space can we, you know, fill in with all the pieces that we were talking about because, you know, each one takes up some space.
Well, and we also have to be sensitive of anything to the left of, anything that's native there, left of the courts and the neck climber and everything. I mean, we would be then getting close
Over
to the
like this.
houses,
Yeah.
which the board has already been sensitive to. I mean, they moved the volleyball court away from those houses, so we wouldn't want to just propose that something go right back in that same space.
But you can see right here is a 40-foot dimension.
Weren't there swings over in that area in a plan at one point in time?
Yeah.
Where that gazebo
Yeah.
is.
Where that gazebo is,
The
yeah.
gazebo was swings.
Oh, okay.
So how much of this, I mean,
Lights up there.
I think, Patrick, you said it earlier, how much of this, were we actually designing or saying, okay, we would like swings, you know, in an area this big with at least one, you know, handicap accessible of this type, and say, where does it fit, in the current drainage and grading, where would you recommend it? And here's the other requirement, we don't want it so close to the houses, but it's kind of, we just give them the requirements instead of actually
I mean,
trying to do design
they're gonna
ourselves,
fit
right?
it in, they're gonna fit it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to give everyone a picture of how much space is out there, because to me, this tells you, that fitness cluster was like that big,
Yeah.
approximately, so just how much space we're taking.
Yeah, I appreciate the context, because when you look
20
at
by 60.
when you look at their artist renderings of the fitness cluster, it looks huge, but when you put it in the perspective of this giant park, it's really not that big.
Right. So anyway, I mean, and also, this also shows us, with the sand volleyball, the basketball, and the net climber, we're really trying to fit within that zone somewhere for all these pieces. So when we start talking about how many swings, it all kind of.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to
ties in there.
figure that you're looking at some, like this kind of area
Yep.
in here.
Definitely, the green space is getting smaller. That's gonna happen.
So should we plan to put the swings and things over by the net climber to kind of keep them out of the way of the volleyball court, basketball court?
I mean, I guess more than anything, we're just trying to say, how big do we want this, right? I mean,
I think
we
we
want
just-
4 swings,
I think
3
we come-
swings, and
yeah.
they're gonna
And
figure
then
out
we-
how it all integrates.
They take it back with the civil engineer, the design guys, the drainage, and we make it work.
Well, yeah, so I mean, we can go forward with, we can say the Mirage swing and the handicap swing and design concepts can figure out how much space that's gonna require and whether they can fit 1 or 2 or 3 Mirage swings.
Right.
I just Googled a bunch of images and they had like the big wheelchair swing with one of those and then like a quote unquote regular, like just a, little regular swing.
Yeah,
They
so
were all-
maybe,
they
yeah,
had-
maybe they'll
line 'em up.
do 1 Mirage, 2 Mirage swings and a regular swing.
Yeah,
So-
it
so
could be
Patrick-
super cool.
Because we might want to have a toddler swing still in there. I don't think
Although
anyone's
if it has a harness, you could probably put the toddler in there.
Yeah, that one, I think.
possibly.
Plus, it's just, Star Wars is.
Looks like a
pretty popular
toddler in
right
that
now,
scene, doesn't it?
It looks kind of like an X-wing.
Maybe 3 or 4.
So how does this work for requirements? Do we say that we want this
Yeah.
swing exactly, or do we say we want something like this? Because do they have any agreements with manufacturers that they might be able to get a discount other
These-
than this exact same one?
These links were provided by
By them.
ECI. So these are, and they're also vendors who are accessible right now, who have
Yep.
product available.
Okay, good.
Is the other thing that we're trying to determine.
That's why.
All right. So let's just look at the other play equipment.
Can we talk, we didn't talk about that freestyler thing, or are we just doing the
Well,
straight up swings?
we'll talk about an additional piece of play equipment. I guess the freestyler could be that additional piece of play equipment, but that was a freestanding piece. It wasn't like something that could be added to a swing set. It was separate.
Okay, I
Is it
just
still
heard
on the-
people ask for things that were different, and we're giving them nothing that's really that different than before.
Well, so that's what we're gonna look at now, is another piece of play equipment that could be different. So, I mean, it could be that freestyle.
But I still agree that some of the swings could be different than a standard swing.
Yeah.
There's other, I mean, even in Founder's Park, there's that, I don't know, my kids use it all the time, that one thing that you stand on and you just spin around and it flips you around over there, and it's,
Oh, that's an unusual, yeah.
it's weird, but my kids use it every time we're there. They love it.
It's at no other park around either.
Yeah, so I mean, anything that is totally unique is, in my book, a very nice piece to add.
So I think the question is that do we want to, for the swing part, do we want to go with traditional swing, or do we want to go with something non-traditional? But going with non-traditional limits the capacity of use, right? If you go with traditional one, you can probably get more, swings next to each other. But if you go with the non-traditional, something, more cooler, if you will, then you might, instead of getting 4 swings, you get 1 or 2 in addition to the wheelchair accessible. So I think that's the question, really what you're asking.
Well, we weren't getting anything, so, I mean, anything that we're adding now is an addition. They weren't gonna be in the park, so.
No, I think that's the question you're asking right now is, so when they say, hey, let's look at swings and let's look at other amenities, you know, are we considering swings the traditional swing, or are we considering it a swing type thing? What are we trying to, you know, when we say, hey, we want to add swings? What is the question? Is it a traditional one, or is it, you know, what do we want to do?
And I think there's what I thought I had understood from the board is things like zip lines. Those were those additional play features completely separate from the swings. So I think what they're anticipating is some type of swinging feature, and then some type of, whether it's the standalone glider thing, standalone zip lines,
Yeah.
to kind of, you know, the
Well, yeah, so you have like, this would be a standalone. So you could have the swings and this,
And that.
Freestyler.
but probably not a zip line or, you know, some other piece of equipment.
Well, could that be the swing?
Sure.
But your email said swings, game tables, play feature, zip line. So are we not getting all of those, or
Well,
are we getting all of
so
them?
it was swings,
Yeah.
This
Play-
group
And
said
hit.
swings,
and so that's one thing. And then it was an additional play feature.
And zip line. is-
For example, zip line.
That's not what this email says, though. It's a listed out separate
Well,
item.
Also, I think there was bocce was another piece.
Yeah, we're
That
just
was
slack
another
line, bocce
item.
ball court, everything that was in that board's covered. The board approved all of it to go in.
So the play, it said like additional playground feature,
Not
i.e.
bocce.
zip
I
line,
know.
mega swing, and there were a couple examples,
Lord.
but it
Right.
wasn't like you were gonna get all of those, it
Oh,
was
Lord.
one of, a additional.
Or, yeah, I mean, if the group won.
Okay.
But I guess we could say 2 or 3, it's just a
Mhm.
matter, again, of space and budget.
But, I mean, to an extent though, also, like, something like this freestyler, I mean, you could integrate some rock feature on the side of it
Uh-huh.
and integrate it into a play area that's all in the same pit of, you know, you don't have to have the rock feature right in front of where this would swing, but you could integrate it onto the side.
As
So
long as-
therefore,
as
you know,
long
there's
as
other
you're-
ways to integrate other pieces in
Yeah,
there.
as long as our fall heights are maintained, you can put them
Right.
wherever.
So I mean, you know, this looks like it takes up a lot of space, but I think there's other ways to integrate. And I think that we could. they
And
could
they'll-
creatively
Even have a
integrate
color
those.
They'll do
options.
that, Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, so if we want, if this group wants to say we don't want any swings, I mean, now's the time to make that recommendation.
So I guess I'll go back to my original question. I think when we're talking swings, are we all thinking traditional, or are we all thinking outside the box? Just in the term of swing alone,
I prefer outside the box, but that's just me. Because, and also because of the proximity to the school. I know that this is the community park and not the school park, but I think that, you know, having some unique features in the park is what's gonna make it a lot more enjoyable.
Yep.
But previously, we said wheelchair swing and the Mirage Seat. Are we saying those are still too traditional, we want something else?
No,
No.
I think those are still unique to the area that I don't think we have at any other park, right?
That's right. I have not. Is
So,
there
I
a
mean,
wheelchair
there
swing,
are-
an actual wheelchair swing in Purple Park or Community Park? Is there an actual platform to wheel a wheelchair on to swing?
There, at community, there is, you would have to take the individual out of their wheelchair and put them in the ADA accessible swing. Their wheelchair wouldn't go in it.
Wheelchair
And
would
there's
go.
one at Founder's Park, too.
Yeah.
But if you were to take those two swings and then add, what was that thing called, the freestyler or something? I don't know if that's too far out there or, you know, what, but, you know, you could have the two
yeah.
and then one other feature that's a similar swing type feature, and you have three.
Three things there that fall under that swing category, not the additional. I kind of like that idea, yeah.
And that's my, you know.
So I mean, is everyone in agreement then, if we recommend the wheelchair, the Mirage Seat, a freestyler, but not any other additional piece of play equipment? I mean, they're all swing related.
What do you mean not any additional?
So not a.
Not
zipline
like
addition to?
a zip line or some type of creative monkey bar feature or some of the other things that Daryl had sent around.
So are we
voting?
limited to, I guess, because there was a line called swing and a line called additional stuff.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that those three things fall under the line called swing, then there's another line that we could still look at for additional stuff.
Well, but I guess it's my question though, is if we had a swing set and it had like the Mirage seat and the wheelchair swing,
And it's still.
but then we have this is like a second entire swing feature. So it's not really, we're not talking about swings anymore, we're talking about multiples of swings.
I guess my only thing is, we're putting in three, if we talk about the two swings and then this, we're talking about three things that, if we take out the zip line, a kid could tie this up for a very long time. Whereas the zip line, you go down, you get off, you go down, you get off, you know, and a number of children. I completely agree on the swing for the handicapped child in a wheelchair, but I'm concerned if we do three swing things and we don't do the zip line, then we have the potential to have fewer children being able to play because a kid would tie that.
Cycling them through.
Yeah.
It's really based on cost though, right? I mean, it's, you know, we assume so much for
And
a swing
space.
set.
And space.
And space. Okay, but we assume so much for space and cost for a swing set. And what are these other things, how much do they eat into that, is the question.
Well, I just threw it out there, but this one is, I'm kind of questioning this one too, in the fact that, are we hitting a target, a large range of individuals to utilize this? Where if I'm on I'll just use a traditional swing or even back to a tire swing, you know, anyone can be on it, any age, any size, where I'm questioning if this is you have to be
Oh, you have to be a certain
middle
height to ride that ride.
school, yeah, you can't
Yeah.
be too tall, you can't be too short, you know, it's like, am I too specialized?
What are scroll up, there's the specs. See maybe a little.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I asked my kids what they wanted. They said, I want a huge zip line, like in Seattle, there's this huge zip line in the park. Multi-person swing, a giant slide,
That's the
and,
embankment
What happened
slide.
to the slide?
and a really
The
big
embankment
obstacle
slide
course.
separate. Yeah.
Oh, it is
Yeah, we
still
put
in
it
there,
in.
it's still in
Yeah,
there,
we
A
put
okay.
really big obstacle course.
Age range 5 to 12.
That would be the workout
What's
equipment.
the, do you know what the zip line that they're
Age
referring to
range
is
5
like?
to 12.
Yeah, it's like between, in the trees, it's a big, probably
Oh, so
Yeah,
That
that's
takes
what
up
I'm
a lot of
saying.
space, doesn't it?
40-foot zip line.
Length, use zone length, 40.
So, I
Use
don't know,
on
I
that.
kind of see us,
Hmm.
we could go around and round and round about this all night.
Oh, yeah.
82 pounds.
That's
Yeah.
the fun
This
of
one's a 5
creating a
to
park.
5 to 12.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't
what
really
is
have
the
the
path
specs.
forward to try to reconcile this so we don't?
Beat up over.
Two zip lines.
Kids
That's
reach
the
that
path.
freestyle with your shorts?
Zip line and
It's
slack
not
line.
from 5 to 12. Oh, I don't know if he was going,
Oh, ages 5 to 12.
Ages 5
Well,
to
that's-
12.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And I can definitely get on that. I don't know about 12. I can definitely ride the freestyler.
Unless there's a weight limit.
Yeah. No, that-
it's been 880 pounds.
Let me go back on this page. Oh, here we go.
Well, this was another link they provided, which is
The
basically
overheads
all
don't look exciting to
monkey
me. I
bar
think the
stuff.
zip stuff is way cooler.
I think the zip line thing is
Because
pretty
even,
cool.
even on.
I don't know what
even on that,
versus
you
like
probably have
monkey
1,
bars.
2, and like, you could
Yeah.
integrate it as a
Yeah,
third.
Because it's-
Or even
you
like,
sit
you
on
know,
a seat.
like the.
Oh, you sit on a seat,
Sit on
okay.
a seat.
Yeah, it's much
See,
more
this one, they
inclusive.
still say 5
Even
to
little guys
12.
could do it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and even old people. Like
I was
me.
just
Yeah,
thinking
and
that's more
mean
like a
people like
traditional,
you
but
should
yet
jump
something
in.
that's not anywhere else.
Yeah, tire swing.
I'm liking these little zip lines here. These are swings too, see?
We did, we put slackline poles up and, they were out.
5 to 12.
And they were out doing it the other day, yesterday.
This one's 128 feet long.
Yeah.
Wow.
The kids are 128 feet.
You'd be cruising on this one.
That's,
Yeah, that's
I mean,
pretty
that's,
sweet.
that's
That's
like, that's what a zip line
ridiculous.
should be.
Yeah, it shouldn't be 12 feet. I
I
mean,
know.
you'd be so bored. Cool, I got up to speed and
That's
then
not
I
the
could.
thing.
Is there resolution on the swings,
Yeah, I think we.
right?
Did we agree not to do the freestyler?
So just the,
Well, I think that's still the debate right now. If we do the freestyler, are we gonna be able to do something else like a zip line?
Yeah, I wouldn't. We've got $700,000. As long as we don't go over $3 million, the board's direction is to put all the items in the park. So
I mean, I'm thinking more space at this point than
yeah,
budget.
I don't know that we've got too much luxury to try to figure all that out. I mean, we
We'll
have.
let them
Zip
figure
line.
that out.
Yeah, I think
Engineers
I think
figure
we put it in and we let them come up with a configuration.
Right,
If it
that's what you guys
doesn't
get
work,
paid for?
yeah.
So do we wanna say zip line?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Super
yes.
sweet.
Yes, on the zip
I think
line.
the zip line will be
Yeah.
Kids would
awesome.
be so excited.
Yep.
The longest one we can find.
Okay.
In fact, if they could zip line from the roof of the school into the park.
How
yeah,
about my other suggestion, over Indiana? Let's
Yes,
make
I
it
love
real
it.
here.
How about right over to Sandy Pennington's house, you know, or one of the
Here's the
other
quick way home.
trustees
Hop on
across
the
the
zip line.
street?
Good idea.
You have to bring your own socks to throw over.
Over here.
Could have one that takes you from the park to the school, so.
Maybe instead of mass transit, we can just put zip lines all over town.
There you go.
You can save all the money in trails.
I know.
All right,
But then
so
we gotta get back
I
to-
think we have enough to feed back to Patrick so they can work. You said a location for the embankment slide, but there was a location for the embankment slide, correct?
I thought
There
it was
was-
a grade on the park.
there was generally it was on the west side of the park. So do we want it? If we're being sensitive to the homes, that was ECI and Design Concepts' concern is we're now putting an amenity.
That
I mean, the
is
board
directly
approved
on
it, so we're putting it
It's like
in.
a low impact amenity. I think it's
This is
wherever
like,
the
yeah.
grade is greatest.
The only, this is like the steepest grade right here and right here. And then you can see that flattens out. Those lines, the tighter the lines, the steeper it is. Just in case no one catching
I didn't
I
that.
didn't
Yeah,
even see
thank
the
you.
lines until you mentioned
Thank
it.
you for your engineering expertise.
And then the other lines are tight right in here,
Topographical.
but you're way out away from where the kids'
Yeah,
play
no,
areas
you
are.
would be going sliding
you're slid-
towards.
this
the
is
street.
really-
That's good, that
yeah.
means you're spreading them out.
They're good. This is going to be them sliding down, heading home anyway. But
Yeah.
And then the only other item is
it's really you
natural.
can only fit it right.
Natural small boulders or larger kind of prefabricated boulders for the play
Are we
boulders.
trying to make it more like rock climbing?
I
Like
think you want
bouldering?
it to be like a bouldering, because if
Yeah,
they're
so-
just single boulders that are natural, that's really great. But can
But you
people
can step
climb
on
on it? And I mean, it's kind of that next step to actually going out and
So-
doing it out.
So then the initial,
Keep in mind the neck climber is gonna be pretty big, like 20 feet high.
so if you
So
go
that's
to
gonna be
the,
like your bigger kid
Click on the
climbing
Word
piece. The
document,
boulders
Corey.
is more like the little kid
Click
climbing
on the Word
piece.
document.
and then I think I
Wait a second.
included a link, Colorado Hardscapes.
Oh yeah. Oh, hold on.
Is that what you just said, Peter? A climbing net that's 20 foot high?
That's.
Yeah, it's just
that's
24
right,
feet high.
right? Yeah.
24 feet high.
Yeah.
That's what the neck climber is.
Wow.
So
And then
I'll-
scroll down
Wow.
and click on the
That's
picture.
I'll tell you all that, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Whitetail Park or even at the community park in Louisville, that
So
big
we're-
old climbing thing that they have.
Man.
That's always filled.
So we're envisioning something more like this, not just kind of boulders, right? These are prefabricated.
These
kinda neat.
these are probably real, but this is prefab.
All of it's prefab. That's what this company does.
That's cool.
Yeah, I
That
think
is
that's-
pretty cool.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It even has a
I
shade.
love it.
That's a,
So
Has
is
a little
that,
shade up there.
is that, so I guess that's not what I was thinking, because that looks more like
Yeah,
a
that's
playground
not-
that has like a fake boulder around it.
Yeah, no, this is, I just wanted to
That's
make
not what
sure
I was
that
thinking
we're,
of.
big cost difference between prefabricated
Okay.
things that look like rocks and just big boulders.
So I was kind of thinking what they have in Louisville at their community park or at Whitetail Park, they have this
Yeah.
big climbing, it's a boulder, like you
Yeah.
can climb up like a boulder, and it's prefab, and it's, probably about 10 or so feet high, and every time we go out there, there's tons
So
of
more
kids climbing
similar
those
to what
things.
we have at
What we're
Founders.
founders. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I mean, not
And then
not
weather
huge,
boulder, too.
but still sizable.
Yeah.
Crested Butte. but that's in their park.
Is that natural?
Nope.
No. Okay.
Oh, I understand
It
what you're
has
talking
like
about,
cool
Crestview.
handhold
Yeah,
built into it.
perfect. That's fine.
That's over.
I wanna be able to project, you need an Apple TV in this room, so
Yeah,
you can,
that'd
everyone
be
can
ideal.
say,
We could
share
airplay.
my cell phone
My
with
cool photo.
TV.
It's like that.
I mean, seriously.
That's cool.
Of course, when you're having a
That's cool.
board
That's a
meeting,
lot.
then that might
Well,
be a
we'll-
problem
yeah.
with the community.
So
You
so
know,
next
might
steps
not
on
want
this,
to-
we have pre-construction tomorrow. Design Concepts is gonna take this information, work with ECI, we're gonna give it to the civil engineer,
Space.
come up with a new configuration for the park, go through a couple design reviews, and then hopefully get
Does
it
that-
back to construction on schedule.
Does that take away some of the costs? All this extra design review and this extra redesign?
Yeah.
So we really don't have the full 700K, we have minus whatever this extra.
Right, yeah. And there's already been a handful of, we've got to do a pump system for the irrigation and, the issues.
Is this what you saw?
The restroom's 11 months out, so there's gonna be a little
That
bit
park
of.
in Crestview?
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's the one.
I mean, that's pretty similar to like what's that?
Who is the engineer, Patrick?
Yeah,
Who's the engineer
bigger,
from
Yeah.
a little bit bigger.
Ackerman?
Ackerman is?
Are we moving on to solar?
All right, so let's move on, leadership election. Since the last meeting, does anyone have any interest in putting their name in for chair, vice chair? No? All right, so, I mean, Sandy had expressed her interest as remaining vice chair and me as chair, so if no one else is interested, we can just, we'll have a vote on that. So, a motion to, do we have to have an actual motion? All right, so a motion for myself, Peter Bottomley, to continue as chair, Sandy Hammerly to continue as vice chair. Second. All right, discussion? All in favor?
Yep.
Opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Okay.
Peter, can we
Thanks.
look at another swing that might be? Sorry.
This is a cool swing.
Yes.
It's really cool. It's actually a combination. It's more,
All
if
right.
you go to the link with where the
Click up at the top there.
zip line was.
Oh, here, just minimize it.
Yeah, how
I
did we
think it's
get
cooler
lose
than
that?
the spaceship one.
The Zip Cruise one?
If you go, yeah, go there and in the search box, type in swing.
Very specific, huh?
I know.
Swing.
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 The oodle swing, right there.
Second one.
Multi-user swing, multi-directional oodle swing. But then there's a video right below it. It actually shows
That a
a little
hat?
girl in a wheelchair in that swing in addition to.
It's like a tire swing, but a little bit.
But cooler because it
Yeah.
doesn't spin around and make you throw up.
Oh,
does do-
come
But
on
it does
now.
have
It
some,
does have
it does
some-
have some play in it, because you
Yeah.
can see
See, look at
that
that.
it can go.
Yeah, it articulates in several directions, but it doesn't spin in circles.
It's not going to
Yeah.
spin in a circle. Exactly.
That thing's cool.
I mean, and multiple kids can play in it, which
Mhm.
was why I thought it was kind of cool compared,
Multi-swing.
There you go.
They are showing
you know, compared to the.
Girls.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a girl, too.
And the wheelchair component, and it's multiple kids doing things.
check, check, check.
And it's
Look
different.
at
It's
you.
not a regular swing.
Yeah,
Cool.
and even grown-ups can play it.
So it's an oodle
And that
swing?
almost fulfills the freestyler thing too, if you got some crazy 7-year-old boy.
Yeah, if you
to
want, you
on
can
it.
stand on that.
Yeah.
You could. You shouldn't, but you could.
And
7,
they probably
44,
will.
whatever it takes.
Yeah, I think it's cool.
Little swing.
All right.
And
All
then
right.
one more, no, I'm just kidding.
So,
Turning down the
Patrick
So-
had forwarded an email.
Hold on, I got one more question. So, in this, we're putting in swings, boulders, embankment slide, bocce pits, fitness cluster,
Slack line.
and the slack line.
Should be 8 items.
Zipline?
Zip line?
Zip
Zip
line's
line,
in the
slack
additional
line.
plate, yeah.
This place is gonna be
It's gonna be a
epic.
sweet park.
This is gonna be sweet.
It's
I'd
gonna
really like
make
to see how much
Farmers
actually
Park
gets in there with all the.
not be as busy.
Yeah,
Actually,
our grass is gonna be like this
People
small.
go to-
Well, no, I mean, once they do the redesign and cuts, we'll be sort of like, okay, we'll pull that out, pull that out, pull that out, and we'll end up with like what we have plus a swing.
They'll make it work. They'll make it work.
That's why
there's
there's things called change orders.
So,
Good old
10%.
change orders right there. Town centers,
10%.
change orders, every change order at town center.
So the update items were emailed out. If, I don't know if everyone saw that, so we don't really need to cover them here. But I will remind everyone that the dinner with the board is next Monday at 6 o'clock here. Also, once a quarter, we do the committee open house. And staff was looking at doing that on Thursday, April 28th. I think it's usually 6 o'clock here. I can't be present because there's a HOA board meeting that evening. Since we don't have an opening, we could probably get away with not having anyone here to represent PROSTAC. I mean, I've been to the last few of these, and OSAC usually has someone, but generally none of the other committees have anyone present. But if anyone is available and wishes to represent PROSTAC, I mean, you just come here and you wait and see if anyone comes and has questions.
Spiders swing.
In all honesty, the last couple times I've been here, no one's come.
April 28th.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's something that, staff has us do, so if anyone's available, April 28th, 6 o'clock, that's the date.
As far as I know, I'm available. Not changing.
All right.
The only other, I have an update to the update that Town Manager Magley and I received this evening, and the board does want the Coal Creek Crossing Trail to be discussed Monday night during the meeting. So,
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, can you clarify, so the developer doesn't do anything?
so the board said do nothing, and then there was pushback from the residents that live over there, which this group anticipated would happen, so the board would like to revisit the
So there's gonna
north-south
be
trail.
no trail there?
Well, as of the board meeting, there was
Well,
going to be
the
no
one we
trail.
all didn't want is not gonna be there, but the extension.
East-west.
East-west is definitely not
Yeah.
going in.
Okay.
The board did agree that the north-south was not going in, but now they would like to rediscuss that item Monday night.
Because the residents in that area may wanna have access.
I think they were fairly vocal within the last couple days. Is the understanding that I got.
About wanting access or not?
About wanting the trail, wanting to know why the trail was taken out.
So just for
Just the
clarity.
north-south.
Just the north-south.
Well,
So for clarity, when we voted to keep the north-south, right? So
Correct.
what would the discussion
We
be
weren't
to see if
asked
we
to
still
vote on
wanted to vote to keep it, or?
No, there isn't.
It's just
There's
discussion.
not a discussion with this group. The board
Okay.
cut
Okay.
all the trails,
Yeah,
and now they'd like to revisit whether that was the right decision to cut
okay,
all
so
the
it's the
trails.
board's discussion, but I think we're still of the same
Yeah.
opinion. That was our.
I just didn't want it to be
Okay.
a surprise to anybody
I
that
think it was
now
the-
coming back.
The board cut them all because OSAC also recommended not putting
Right.
any in.
Okay.
And we said the north-south because we thought the north-south was still a viable, that's what the board wanted.
Plus, they were gonna pay for it.
Right,
We
right.
wouldn't have to pay for it.
But the board actually said they wanted to wait on the north-south to see where a social trail may come. They weren't saying entirely never to do it, was my
But the fact is that
understanding.
if we cut it out now and there's a social trail comes in, just like all the other trails on the list, when will it get done?
It becomes number 15.
Well, I
Well,
I
yeah,
know, I'm
and it
just
also
saying what
would come out of the
my
town budget at
understanding
that
of what
point.
I heard when I.
Yes, I agree. I agree with
Yeah.
you. Yes.
That they weren't saying absolutely not to the north-south, but they were saying not right now, let's see what happens.
So no matter what, they just want to discuss it again on Monday. See what
It
our
sounds like
opinion
there's
is.
some traction to put the board wants to discuss the north-south trail going back in.
But they don't want any opinion from us?
We already gave them
I
our
mean, they
opinion.
don't
They don't.
expect anyone from PROSTAC to be, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
not probably.
Is there any other agenda items that they want to discuss or that we would like to discuss on Monday night?
I guess
They're
most of
gonna
the
look
meetings
at
are-
parcel 1 and
Huh?
2
I tried to
for the
remember meetings, yeah.
third meeting.
But I mean, anything else on our?
But that's just
that we-
approving the budget for the design, right?
That's actually to start the FDP design process for 1 and 2.
But it's more a budget question at this point.
Yeah,
right?
that
It's
was
not-
all about budget.
It's not, it has
Right,
nothing to
yeah.
do with what's going
So we're just bringing it
on.
back one more time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's totally.
Yeah, it's not something we have any input on, it's where,
But I hate to say, they were a long ways apart on what was a completed design and what was
Correct.
schematic front
They
end.
were.
A long way apart.
Yeah, this is, the only thing we have now in parcel 1 and 2 is very, very loose conceptual designs.
Oh, yeah.
Light years away from,
It doesn't look anything like that with all the little line contours and
You mean the
where
ones
the
that are
grass
close
is.
together,
Yeah, the
so
close
you-
versus
Yeah.
apart.
topographic.
yeah.
Yeah. That makes a huge difference on whether or not it works, the way it's kind of sketched out.
So we also have Winter Wildlife Walk on February 20th. And then the youth services, the youth council is hosting a cyber seniors event. Working with seniors on apps, computers, iPads. They're doing that in conjunction with Louisville, at the Louisville Rec Center. Pretty cool project. And then they may also be a group that if, on your amenities prioritization, if you're looking for teen input, that's 15 to 20 kids that are pretty good kids who have a pretty good handle on, you know,
Benches so they can
what
text.
what people like to see, what they like to see.
Cool.
Sandy, I take it you support my idea of texting benches?
I think that's a great idea.
No, I actually texted my babysitter while we were in here tonight, and she came up with some pretty good ideas. I'll email them out to you guys. Because I was like, make me look smart in this meeting. So she came up with some great ideas, actually.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Hit the gavel.
Come on, hit it.
Come on, Peter. How dare you?
Oh,
Dang. Don't be a.
So in the game tables, they're just picking those?
Yeah, I think it was a cluster of 2 or 4 multiple game tables, not ping pong, not bigger game tables, more
Yeah,
like
just a little
bocce.
chess checkers.
Chess, checkers.
Up here? Okay. Have you guys been getting able to play?
Are they actually?
I saw a picture of kids playing in there.
Well, I had asked Dave Stover, who's the president of Broomfield. I think it was right around the Super Bowl, before the Super Bowl, whether they were, you know, because Ron had said they were supposed to be practicing like the next week.
Yeah.
And he says,
Oh, nice.
no, it's been delayed again. You could tell he was not happy man with that. In that, the word that he used was liar.
Did Aaron, Peter, is this yours?
Luke's got to pay for all that, doesn't he? And then for their insurance, he has to have 2 or 3 staff members just in the building for his insurance. And then that fire guy is the general manager. Yeah.
No, Daryl
Yeah.
Robbins didn't give a chance.
And then,
I tried to get in, they wouldn't let me go back.
I've never had it done yet.
if, so if I were to happen, well, the personal dude, like, just asked, so they had to require me because the auditory system's not in yet to announce it.
The only thing that passed today was the flashing lights in the
Strobe?
Really, barely passed.
When I was
They
up
can't-
there,
We have temporary CO just on certain, that's the only thing.
They died, they got killed by raccoons.
And
So
they
we're-
were painted, that ice hockey
I
rink,
got there,
terrible.
and
And
I
let
was
it
like
melt?
taking care of
So
it.
what-
And I went
what
out
we
there,
heard-
and I'm like,
I don't know, I heard the same thing, is
everywhere,
that somebody
and I'm
fell
like,
asleep at the wheel during the Super
uh-oh,
Bowl.
chicken down.
And let
And
that
then I
get too hot.
realized the other one was missing the lead.
When they were, because you put that ice down in multiple multiple layers with a mist. And then they have to paint it white, because if not, it'd be brown like the dirt that's underneath it. And it sounds like they have that thing all laid out with the lines on it. And that paint, it's, well, Luke was saying it's pretty painstaking. You can only go about that far before the paint freezes. They had that whole thing painted. And then they had somebody in there monitoring it. They kind of checked out during the Super Bowl. The temperature rose in there. So after they had that whole thing painted, it melted, so all the lines.
One thing I don't understand, I don't know why they didn't go all vinyl. You should have went all vinyl on that floor versus paint.
So has Haley practiced in there? Yeah, well, I talked to Dave Stover. I talked to Dave Stover right before the Super Bowl. He had a few choice words about Luke, and I said, well, the next time you're over there, let me know.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I
You
tell
can
you.
go anytime you see the light. They practice every night.
Yeah,
You just walk in the side door.
yeah, but it's
You just gotta
good.
get there.
It's
It's
go
good.
on.
George put down a good parking lot. You can, there's a parking lot in there.
There's a
Is it
parking lot
good?
there. It's great.
Once you get to the park,
It's one of my few
you
achievements.
just don't get, you just don't have road to get
That's
there.
great.
Are you guys, George, are you guys gonna do the cut on McCaslin too, or?
No, we're not touching
Three
it.
fields.
I'm not touching it at all.
Cause I'm gonna have to have Matt and the guys, I mean, we're gonna have to cap, we have to cap the irrigation in the, we're gonna have to take out probably 4 or 5 trees, move the boulders, cap the irrigation so they can
There's
cut.
more than you think that's in that.
Isn't there a main? I've always heard that there's a huge main that runs in there, right?
And what else do you think, there's over 1 million running power in the middle of that.
I assume there was some because of the lights.
There's 1 million in the middle of the picture. Million. Back away. Kill you.
Yeah.
Swear to God.
Turf
And
is
you know what?
good.
And I've done
The
this.
kids are enjoying it, and
Absolutely.
the coaches are happy.
I think it's kind of
I think that's why, that they were catching so much grief, because it's not heated at all.
There's heat in there.
They have to shut it off.
There's holes in the wall.
Don't worry, it's like 70 degrees out.
I know that.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, right now, it's not
You just
bad,
have-
but
we
a
have
week
little
from now,
propane heaters, they
it's
got
cold
heat going.
again, or 2
Oh,
weeks
they
from
We
now.
have gas hooked up. We got the gas hooked up.
The gas was
They're waiting on the meters. They got the gas hooked up and they tested it and now we're waiting on.
Is it just the waiting on the meter, isn't it, for Excel?
Unmetered gas is hooked up.
So where is Impact going to be over there? Are they gonna-
Impact's the square building that's being built right now, right in front of the turf field.
Okay, where's the, that the whole thing?
That
That
big
whole
kind
thing?
of, that big kind of taller rectangular slope thing.
Yeah.
That'll be Impact.
Yeah.
Front part will be basketball court, fitness in the back. And then it'll have, the the roll-up doors that lead out to the turf field. And then the upstairs will be like their fitness areas.
Did Cornerstone build this?
Now Cornerstone stuff wasn't there. And then Belmont Sports has golf simulators
Oh, that's
and
cool.
batting cages. So what you haven't seen in the turf field too is on the west side. Eventually there'll be a mezzanine above that, and there'll be all the batting cages and pitching. Yeah, and then Belmont, that same group,
On the front side.
are putting down. And then upstairs in between the 2 sheets of ice, they'll have the restaurant on the north end with seating, at each area, so you'll be able to eat, look at the soccer field, eat, look at all the hockey rinks. And
Oh, so
then,
you'll be able to see the soccer field in the restaurant.
and then Belmont Sports will have, if you picture like shooting lanes, they'll have high-end golf simulators for 4 of them, and then the other 4 will be like, you can go kick a soccer ball, or you can shoot zombies, or you can throw a football, all virtually, and then they're working on being able to have the alcohol go into the restaurant there. So if you pay for your golf membership, since it's that real high-end, if you slice the ball, it'll hit the screen and slice it. They're trying to make like their food and drink inclusive as part of the membership. And then at one point, we had offices in there, but I don't think we know the bit, so.
Well, just make sure your offices are in there.
Yeah, and then the coffee shop. Coffee shop.
When are you guys supposed to move in that?
They have this, I swear there was a date on it.
If it, yeah,
Or
right.
it goes through.
If it goes through.
Well, they're building.
They're close.
I'll
No,
say
I
that
think
the
they're that close.
extension's as close as I think that's.
I think the extension is definitely needed. That's ridiculous. We can be right here.
So we do that. Yeah, so tentatively, there's a plan out there to do in the big, and this has been around forever, but the back lot right here, do probably 2 stories. Cops, so Lance and his guys would come over, we get to come over, Heather and the chamber would come over, public works would come over. So no more of
You guys would be, no more running across the
No
street,
more.
you guys would be.
Yeah, but think how fat they'll get.
I know, you
Because they
go
won't have
burning
the
the
street to
calories,
run across.
you won't be
They
able to
won't
look at
be
your
able to
steps.
I mean, these guys
roller
about,
polies.
I've probably been about picked off 5 times on that street because I'll kind of zone out.
On your
Time walking over here.
So when are they gonna break ground at the school parcel? I have to know when to start walking up, just be sure and text me.
I think they could
Text me,
probably.
let me know.
Are they doing like a big groundbreaking? Come on.
I just
We
wanna
need to
know,
figure
so I
out- what's
start
the
walking
naming?
up there.
We need to figure the design.
Well, and at some point, we need to be.
Yeah,
But
we
always
do
gonna be
that
called
in
vacation park.
summertime.
No, the whole thought was get the amenities in, let it have its character, and then you can make it based off of whatever the feature becomes.
Well, not amenities.
It's gonna be called